Okay, good evening, everybody. It is 6:02 p.m. This is the regular business meeting of the Smithfield Township Board of Supervisors. Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Members present include myself, Chair Jacob Pride, Vice Chair Robert Lovenheim, Supervisor Michael Albert, Township Manager Julia Heilicke, Conservation and Recreation Director Dr. Alex Jackson, Administrative Coordinator Diana Salvi, our Engineer John Kressler, Solicitor Ron Karasak, and our SEO Scott Brown. Thanks, everybody. Announcements: we had a standing executive session this evening that was from 5:14 p.m. to 5:45 p.m. regarding personnel with 2025 appointments and litigation with regard to the back nine matter. Next, we have 4 sets of minutes: the October 17th joint session, the October 18th regular meeting or special meeting, the November 19th regular meeting, and the November 26th special meeting.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Albert. Do I hear a second? Questions? All in favor? Aye. Okay, bills and obligations, we have between November 27th and today, December 10th. We have 2 sets that total $115,805.34 between the general fund, fire fund, EMS fund, escrow fund, and the capital improvement grant fund. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Albert. Do I hear a second? Mr. Lovenheim? Questions?
I do. Who's Brown? What's Brown and Brown?
Your insurance brokers.
Oh, insurance?
Yes.
Yeah. Agreed.
I have a question in reference to the LVL Engineering Group bankrupt.
Let's do something.
I was looking
61.
at that one. So Level Engineering declared bankruptcy back in 2024. When they declared bankruptcy, there were bills that they had done for services for us that, because they declared bankruptcy and shut down, were never billed to the township. Now they're going through the process of liquidating all of the assets, doing all of that sort of stuff, and they have found that these bills that were never sent to the township and have been unpaid. So what you see in the bill pack reflects money that we need to send to the attorney whose name I am blanking on, but this satisfies that payment as it's done.
And that was engineering work that was done. It was engineering.
Yes.
For the township.
Yeah, John Tressler used to work for Level Engineering. He is now a member of T&M Associates.
Any other questions? All in favor? Aye. Excellent. Reports, we'll go to Ron for the solicitor's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I attended the 2 meetings in October, the regular business meeting of the Planning Commission and the special meeting of the Township Board of Supervisors. There were several developments and outstanding litigation with respect to the Mountain Manor land use appeal. Briefs were filed in that matter, and a decision was entered by Judge Rulich of the Court of Common Pleas, which basically sustained Mountain Manor's appeal as to a continuing resort use. So the judge said it is a resort and continue as a resort, however, denied their use for a motocross track as a resort use or a membership club. So the township effectively won on, that particular issue. There were also developments with respect to, the Carroll cases. Now, remember, there are two. One deals with the land use appeal with respect to the ordinance, where it was asked that that ordinance, which permitted the conditional use in the R1 zone, be vacated. And then there's also a land use appeal with respect to the Healthy Minds matter. Again, briefs were filed. We're waiting for decisions in that regard, and I believe that Ms. Carroll has filed an appeal of the judge's decision with respect to the denial of the non-protunct decision. I also prepared the township audit letter for 2023 as is customary, and also prepared and attended the hearings or at least prepared the advertisement notices with respect to the Wawa liquor license transfer. And there was also a review of various ordinances. One was on tonight's agenda dealing with the bed and breakfast. Another deals with the special exception use provisions. And other than, again, typical emails, phone calls, etc., and receipt of review letters with respect to various plans like Chiquitas, Franklin Hill, and the 3 Point Gardens. That's about what was on my plate for October, or November, I'm sorry.
Excellent. Thank you. John?
Thank you, Mr. Pride. You had several reviews that we worked on in the past couple of weeks. One was Healthy Minds. 3 Point Garden was also back in. We had looked at the sheets down at the intersection of 209 and 447, but that was done actually a couple of weeks ago. Missy has continued to working on the bike park. She's conducted some interviews. There is a public meeting tomorrow night on that subject. We resubmitted the waterfront park to the conservation district on 11/25. We prepared a staging plan and estimated quantities for Vision Loss Trail. And I reviewed the Act 537 update, which is planning on transferring ownership of the Mana. Trouble with that. Yeah. Treatment plans. So, is there any questions?
I don't have anything. Questions? All right, great. Julie, anything that you wanted to know?
One brief thing, we have officially applied for a statewide LSA grant for the Shawnee Fire Company. They're looking to buy a new engine. And we have successfully asked the state to fund $1 million for that project. That's 1.3 altogether.
Successfully
Applied,
you've applied,
yes.
successful, what? Okay,
No,
Hear about that
we
next
won't do
year.
that
that's a
for
while,
12
that's a while,
months, yeah.
okay, perfect, thank you, I'm not sure I understood.
Awesome. Environmental Advisory Council, Pat, is she here or? Oh, there you go.
You just spoken?
Oh, cool. Pat, do you want to talk or do you want Brett or?
I don't think we really have anything to talk about, do we?
The next meeting is next week.
Yeah. I don't think anything, we didn't meet or.
Right, in between, okay. Cool, all right, we'll go with that. And,
Thank you.
yes, not a problem. And on I-80 and State Route 611, we'll talk to Tara Mezzanotte. Thank you for being here.
Good evening. Tara Mezzanotte, your NDOT NJDOT liaison for I-80 and 611 matters. Good news on the Jersey side, the retaining wall project has been delayed, and Warren County got official notice that it was originally going to be for 2025. They officially noticed That is now the soonest a shovel could be in the ground is 2026. And the reason for that is additional reviews with the National Park Service regarding historic resources, that's section 106, and preliminary engineering and environmental review document, which is NEPA. So that is to everyone's credit. You know, we, as a unit, New Jersey and Pennsylvania counties and municipalities showed up every time we were provided the opportunity and asked all the right questions for which they were not able to proceed without additional reviews. So I'm going around thanking everybody for that, and we can chalk that up as a win. And the win on the Jersey side is not that we want to delay everything, it's that we really need more scrutiny to the Jersey projects. There's a lot of questions and a lot of potential impacts should things not be scrutinized accordingly. On the Pennsylvania side, on the 611 side, totally different story. We don't want any, we want to do everything we can proactively, aggressively, so we can avoid any delays. I did get confirmation that the Lenape tribal nations, there's 3 federally recognized tribes that have stake in the area. A process that they started asking about, and I saw it happening in 2020. Just recently, I saw that there is gonna be a petition to designate the possibility of designating the Delaware Water Gap as what's called a traditional cultural property. Now, the great news about that is that was like an inevitable, just like we're pushing and working behind the scenes to look at the Delaware Water Gap to have the same petition to be a national natural landmark or national historic landmark. Because if we don't get those things moving along, when they do the environmental assessment, which is happening 2025 for the 611 projects, it could have, what happened on the Jersey side could happen on the Pennsylvania side, and that is what started in 2020 and is not happening now to 2024 might start, unfortunately, now and not happen for years, but we let that happen in its natural process. What's happening on the Pennsylvania side is we're not letting that happen in a natural process. We're working on that. And what I mean by working on that is, unfortunately, we had a great advocate in Congressman Cartwright and April working aggressively for all matters 611. And the next step was going to be working aggressively for all matters of the Delaware as a whole with the Federal Highway Administration. Losing April and Congressman Cartwright, we lose that continuity, unfortunately. You know, we have Congressman-elect Bresnahan and Congressman-elect McKenzie?
Yes,
McCormick, thank you, McCormick, is it?
Ryan
No,
McKenzie
I had
is
it.
replacing Susan Wild.
I had it, yes, McKenzie.
Yeah.
So what's left is a learning curve, you know, they're gonna land and hit all their priorities. So Senator Fetterman has been engaged for the past, since he got elected, he's been showing up at all the meetings we've been at, or representative from his office. So I did meet with them to have a discussion, you know, when does a senator take a lead on anything like this that's not normal? It really should be our congressional representative. So I just want you to know on your behalf and other municipalities' behalf, we did have a preliminary meeting to start those kind of conversations. When it comes to really advocating for the township, I'll be looping everybody in. But the preliminary discussions are going on to figure out the groundwork for those kind of meetings. And I'm doing the same thing on the Jersey side with the senator's office and the congressional reps there. So any questions?
Okay. Awesome.
A lot.
Thank you for everything you do.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for keeping us in the loop
It's a
on this.
complicated thing. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas and
Thank you.
Happy New Year. See you next year.
Sounds good. Thank you. Supervisors, comments, anyone, have anything they wanted to know? No. Okay, great. So under old business, we have a public hearing, which is going to be opened and then recessed after some brief discussion on our draft ordinance 253 regarding the rescission of the B1, B2 zone references, and then the updates on bread and breakfast language. So you can note that open as of 6:16. The reason why we are recessing it is one, because we don't have the final version that we plan to adopt yet, and also we wanted to have some brief discussion on that and also save on re-advertising costs. As long as we announce the next time it's discussed, we do not have to get into another $300 ad for no reason. So Julia, do you want to highlight where we are different? I know the discussion was on a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, so it's definitely been a couple of meetings. You'll see in front of you right now that there is a new draft format. Some of the issues that we were running up against, was that we were having issues seeing where we were before and where we might be going now.
Right.
So the new format that's available on the website shows the revision that we have in our ordinance on the left side and potential new draft language on the right. Just so as we're going through, we can see, you know, where we're adding, where we're taking out, and directly compare it to what we've got right now. Since you last talked about this, there have been a few private comments that I had changed around. One of them that is jumping to mind immediately was in section 2, where someone had said, hey, animals probably should be in the economic district, so we
Right.
put that out. But everything's highlighted so you can review it. Michael had specifically asked, like, hey, let's not make any changes to this, let's look this over and talk this over and see how we can move forward in a responsible fashion.
So does this include what he had mentioned or no?
I believe he sent me
Didn't
private
we-
comments that
didn't
were
we-
updated with this.
Well, one thing that was brought up at the last meeting was, you know, someone might do a workaround and subdivide their property in 16 and have a small parcel in the middle, and therefore they could have 16 bed and breakfasts. So I think this now says you can have a maximum of your building and the building adjacent to you, and no more than 2 buildings.
And the maximum of those guests,
And the maximum guest is 16.
That
Right.
is a reference to section 6(1)H. So it prevents someone from putting a property, you know, in the middle and then living contiguous to 27 properties and operating 27 bed and breakfasts.
right?
And just so if anyone that might be new to this conversation, this is about changing our bed and breakfast, not our air bed and breakfast.
Right,
And the idea being the owner has to be there. The adjustment is, as opposed to being in the exact building, it can be in the building which is adjacent to where someone lives, either on the same property or in an adjacent property, but only one building adjacent. That was the whole idea of this, and then adding a bunch of more restrictions to ensure that that was not, someone wasn't trying to skirt any of the laws.
right.
Well, I'm gonna be the outlier on this because I believe that this whole ordinance is outdated and that we don't need it. And we should eliminate the entire idea of bed and breakfast. So first of all, there's great confusion between Airbnbs and bed and breakfast. And the difference seems to be the owner has to be there and it serves breakfast. That's not much of a distinction in my mind, and I've had conversations with several of you after the last meeting, we discussed this, and nobody could figure out the difference. Secondly, just in my own limited research, not much, going on the websites looking for bed and breakfasts in the Poconos, what I found is most of them are large houses that have multiple rooms, anywhere from, let's say, 6 to 10 to 12 rooms, and offer amenities like, you know, gracious lawns, you know, some games like shuffleboard, whatever it happens to be. Some of them have hot tubs, and what they really are is inns. And what we haven't dealt with here yet is what's the definition of an inn? Right now, I think it's 60 rooms on 10 acres. We've already discussed getting rid of that acreage because it doesn't make any sense. And also there are inns that don't have the kind of reception area or serve all meals the way a hotel does. It seems like there's a distinct definition of each one, hotels and inns, that we could put in. And if it wasn't for the acreage, then it was just saying, okay, you have to have adequate parking and you could have up to, let's call it 60 rooms. Everything we're talking about with the bed and breakfast would fit in that. As far as breakfast, well, if you look online, you'll see most of these places do offer breakfast. Of
course, the Hampton Inn offers breakfast too. So it's in my mind, it's like, what are we dealing with here? What do we need this for? When it seems like just a simple revision of the inn definition towards what we've already talked about, which is eliminating the 10 acres that it is on, means it could be a bed and breakfast. And we talked about also limiting rooms and how many rooms. Well, the number of rooms and the number of guests is really up to the fire department, not up to us to enforce what their regulations are as far as what the occupancy should be. So I'm saying here, I don't think we need bed and breakfast. I think we need a new definition of an inn, which will encompass what we're talking about. But, and by the way, with an inn, somebody has to be there all the time. That's part of a hostelry where security demands that somebody be in charge. We're really talking about the same thing with bed and breakfast, because we're sort of coming at it from the other side, which is you have to live on the property, you have to live next to the property, the proprietor has to be there. Well, what do we need it for?
So a little Robert,
Yes,
this all started because I agree with you, our definitions are out of date. We have
Yes.
hotels and inns, unclear what the difference are, motels, resorts, bed and breakfasts. And we agreed, this needs to be cleaned up. We need to update it and make sure we know what we're talking about. Why is this 10 acres? That's 5 acres, whatever it was. And we thought we'd start with this mostly because the bed and breakfasts still has a bunch of references to B1, which doesn't
Right.
exist in our township. So we're like, well, we have to fix bed and breakfast anyway. Let's start there. I would argue it is different from an inn because, well, I mean, and this is me having read through it, is the idea of an inn is it's on these sort of sprawling grounds. And therefore it's okay to have sprawling grounds within an R1. And the idea of a bed and breakfast is it's much smaller, so it doesn't have to necessarily be sprawling grounds. All with the caveat that we're still not wanting to have absentee landlords do the bed and breakfast, the what do we call them, short-term rentals.
To be clear, just from the procedural standpoint on B and Bs, we decided to revise this one because we did want to keep the smaller type of uses as a category that is less regulated than, you know, a larger thing. But also, there are only 6 actual regulations that apply right now, whereas we have 14 that are much clearer at this point on owner occupancy and security. And I think that was the key for why we were even doing this. I agree we have too many lodging definitions, but my thought was this actually did simplify it a little bit because B and B as it exists is incredibly ambiguous.
well, I agree it's ambiguous, but from what I'm hearing, the reasons that we need it is because an inn has sprawling grounds, though we haven't defined what that means.
10 acres.
And bed and breakfast needs security, which of course an inn or a hotel must have anyway. So it's
Like
like,
shit, I don't think it does. I mean, I was at Ledge's Hotel a month ago for an anniversary and the caretaker went home at night and said, this is my number, you can call.
well,
I mean, it's not our township, but I'm just saying.
but whatever we pass in this township, I think it should have a provision for security. That's important for the guests. And I don't think we want any kind of hostelry, let's call it, that doesn't have security at all times when people who are guests are present.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, I think it's the whole concept of it is outdated, and we could have an inn and call an inn, I don't know, however many rooms you want, and say, if it's less than so many rooms, it can be on so many acres, and if it's more than that, it has to be on so many acres, but basically, it's the same thing.
Sure, but do I hear what you're saying, Robert, that you don't think we should make any changes to this and instead we need to tackle all of them at the exact same time? My concern is just, it's gonna take 24 months to.
Well, we've heard-
Based on the speed that this little one has gone 2 pages.
But it's introducing or updating something that I don't think really exists anymore. And proof of that is, what is there in the township? There's one that doesn't even function anymore as far as.
Bed and breakfast, you mean? You mean bed and breakfast?
Yeah, and also, I haven't done this, but I'm sure if you look at the economics of it, with all the permits you have to have, with the taxes you pay, with the insurance you have, if you have less than maybe 10 rooms, I don't know if it makes any sense anymore. This is an expensive proposition. So, I think we should look at whether we even need it. If we struck out the whole thing and looked at ends, we'd be probably making something up that's more contemporary as far as where people are staying.
Right now, there are no rules. We need to have some of these regulations in place.
For something that doesn't exist.
There are like 5 in the
No,
township.
Probably less than that.
Like,
3.
Oh, man, 3 and 5, okay.
Sorry.
I'm just saying. We wanted to approach this, so we didn't have 25 varieties of a room you can stay in and or whatever cooking and recreation activities you can take place, take part in. So we wrote this because all of us said, hey, we can start with this one, it's small. And if I'm not hearing that, then we need to figure out what in this we need to keep. But ideally, I don't wanna have another joint
Well,
session.
no matter what, it has to be updated because at a bare minimum, section 3 needs to be updated, section 4 needs to be updated. Section,
Section 2, 3, and 4 specifically deal with the defunct zoning district.
yeah, they have to be.
Those
updated.
have to happen.
And then what happened was then we updated section 5 with a single word, but then it risked someone taking advantage and running an Airbnb. So that's why we added everything that's in section 6 to protect against that happening. But
Mr. Chair, let me further muddy the waters if you
Great.
will.
Go ahead.
Can you speak up, Ron?
Sure.
Thanks.
I had advertised this for adoption back at a September 24 meeting.
Yeah.
It was then canceled because this needed to be reviewed again and went back to the planning commission again.
Right.
And I don't remember advertising this for tonight, so there gotta be 3 advertisements.
it was, no, you were there. This, on that last meeting, it was never closed. It was put on hold. We're not voting on this today. We already know that.
Right.
Did we vote, did it say on hold for today?
Correct.
Because if it didn't say on hold for
It's
today.
set on hold for today, which is why we haven't sent this back anywhere,
Okay.
because it's still in
Okay,
flux.
So we're still on.
But
hold
no
then.
matter what, it's not gonna get voted on, because it still has to go back
I
to both.
understand that,
patch,
but
both
we're on the September 24 hold, if you will.
Still the same meeting.
Right, and
Yeah.
if it changes, then remember, it's gotta go back to your planning
Oh,
commission.
and we're ready for that.
And back to Monroe County Planning Commission before you can have your final
Yeah.
hearing.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I can see the reason to change it because some of the provisions are outdated since we don't have a zone. But I think the question of what it is and do we need it and should it really be something else at this point? Is
So-
something we should discuss more.
So can we agree to keep those sections and then proceed as to get ready to vote on that by the end of January or February, if we're able? And then in the meantime, we can actually spend a couple hours and talk purely about the other lodging uses.
So you
So we
wanna,
don't have to
you
do,
wanna drop section 5 and section 6, all the changes? I'm just clarifying.
to at least get rid of the clerical stuff that we, need
Yeah,
to
I
get
agree.
rid of. I wanna adopt sections 2, 3, and 4 that we know we need to do. And then if we wanna have the broader discussion on the lodging, I would find another day that, kind of like we have with the planning commission to do the signage. But I don't wanna do a joint session until we have a ready to go ordinance on that, because I'm not doing this where we were supposed to adopt this, where it was fine 3 months ago, and now we took, a very simple thing and turned it into a 3-page ordinance. And that's not even boilerplate in there, that's just what we have. Does that make sense? That we
Yeah.
can do a lodging session, just the supervisors, well, it's still a public meeting,
I'd
but-
like to hear, resident opinions too in that session because there were
Well,
a lot of opinions before, mainly against it, but you know.
Well, like I said, it would be a public meeting, it just wouldn't be a joint session with the planning commission, because I don't think we're gonna have a capable group of 13 people for 2 hours on, you know, I wanna get a ready-made ordinance so they can, you know, take the last look as with the regular order.
I would just say, don't throw this away yet, Julia, because I have a feeling it'll end up being the same thing,
Yeah.
it'll just be part of a larger ordinance, but
I agree,
I mean, I don't think there's necessarily a rush on this, so fine.
that's fine.
Okay.
After we,
So then what I will do is I will, for saying it a different way, I'll remove sections 2, 3, and 4 from this. And I will attach them onto the update that you guys wanted to do for submissions plan numbers.
Yes, yeah,
And advertising requirements for the
that's the
zoning change
elevations,
stuff.
right?
What?
The elevations requirement with land development submission.
Yeah, those requirements, I'll put that all together, we can consider that next, and we can come on, and discuss this later.
okay,
One thing I would ask you all to think about as you're pursuing through this, is are you okay with the wording that we have in the bed and breakfast right now? So that if somebody came to the township tomorrow and said, hello, yes, I want to put in a bed and breakfast, are the rules that we have right now acceptable to you? Whether or not we want to adopt an approach where we consider this and then pursue ins and go, hey, we do need to go back and change.
I think you should,
Or if we want to wait and do one big slow push.
What I'm saying is I want in like 4 weeks to have a meeting where we're purely talking about all the lodging uses. I don't think any of us are exactly happy with what we have, but we can live with it because there's not.
well, at a minimum, you should add. Right now, it doesn't say anything about requiring a permit, but they do require a permit or they do not? I don't think they do.
So under section 6(1)(a), it says permit required. It does require a permit.
No, that's in the new one,
Oh, currently,
correct.
correct.
The structure needs a permit, but not the use. If I'm not mistaken.
Well, that doesn't make any sense.
Well, depending on how you build it.
Because this is in the Saldo? Or no?
Well, no, I mean, anything that falls under the zoning ordinance, you're required to get your zoning and your building permit. It just doesn't mean, like, there's no permit for operations. That's one of the things we wanted to.
Correct, that's what I'm saying. So, right, just so everyone knows,
Yeah,
saying no, we're not gonna move forward means that anyone can just open a bed and breakfast without a permit, because this was proposing they had to have a permit. So that's one thing we might wanna add. The other one is, the will serve, which was actually a recommendation from the planning commission.
yeah,
So you might wanna keep that in there. The other one was must maintain compliance with hotel excise tax and hotel tax registration. That is good, doesn't make it any more lenient, it makes it more difficult. That's it, those are the other ones that
yeah.
are probably should be there. Even in this other ordinance now that you're gonna incorporate them into.
Michael, can you clarify what you meant by will serve?
In the new draft, on
Right.
section, do you have a copy?
I do, right here.
Yeah, it's section 6(1)(k).
Got it.
Owner must provide a will serve letter from appropriate water company and sewer company,
Got it, okay.
which is not presently,
Yeah.
and so I'm just
Yeah,
saying,
yeah.
if we're
I
not
wasn't
gonna do
familiar
a
with the
new one.
term, so, thank you.
I mean, effectively, the only thing we're changing is we're keeping it so that you must be an owner occupied building. You can only let people into your home that can't be if you have a cottage in the back, which is what we were trying to do, just so we're on the same page.
So I'm not gonna hazard to pick a date for that meeting yet, but we will talk about that on the 17th. So we can move on.
So if you don't pick a date, you need to re-advertise.
Yeah, we're already saying that this ordinance we're not gonna pass.
Okay, I'm just saying, but if you pick a new date, you gotta re-advertise.
Of course, it's gonna be for a different ordinance.
I guess what I'm saying is this will be the end of this one.
Okay.
So much for saving $300.
That's fine. Okay.
And we should still get comments.
Yeah. That general approach. So the thought is sometime in January, we'll have a meeting that is purely dedicated to lodging uses. And we will incorporate some, as we've specifically said here tonight some of the language in this current draft while leaving the more philosophical questions on distinguishing the various uses and deciding what we need. So that's going to be our plan at this point, and this will not be adopted in full. Is there any comment before we move on?
Well, after we hear public comment, we're effectively voting no on this.
We're not voting no, we're just not adopting it because.
We're closing the hearing and then nothing happens, gotcha.
Correct.
Motion to close the hearing.
All right, motion by Mr. Levenheim, do I hear a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Albert, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, excellent. Consent agenda, for new business, we have the consideration to approve the Shawnee Fire Company eligibility list and the Bushkill Emergency Corps eligibility list both for the Volunteer Service Tax Credit Program. Approve the collective bargaining agreement with Teamster 773, which is our Department of Public Works. Approve the memorandum of understanding with Bonner County RSVP, that's the Retired Seniors Volunteer Program. And the consideration to adopt resolution 575, the contribution of extra funds received from the state to the retirement fund. Do I hear a motion on
Motion to
that?
approve the consent agenda.
Motion by Mr. Levenheim. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Second, Mr. Albert. Questions?
Yeah, what's the MOU? I mean, I read it, but
RS,
MOU, I know who they are, I know what they do. What do
it's
we do?
basically allowing them to continue a relationship with the township, saying, hey, yes, you can call us and, ask for assistance.
Haven't
Okay.
had anybody so far.
I mean, I've had RSVP volunteers, other organizations I work
Yeah.
for. There's no financial requirement.
Nope.
I know there isn't normally for an RSVP,
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if this was related to the fact that we made, wasn't an ordinance, but
The resolution.
the resolution that we were gonna fund
Contributions.
nonprofits. I wasn't sure if this was
Yeah.
them trying to access funds by setting this up, but.
Not at all. No,
Okay.
this is simply an agreement that if we call up and say, hey, we'd like assistance with this, they can help us.
Okay. That's my only questions. No question.
Any others? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, next we have a waiver request from LTS Homes LLC. That is why we have Scott Brown here, with our SEO Hanover Engineering. So, you wanna come on up? And, I take it you're from LTS?
Some things have happened since we turned into item for the agenda, just if you want to follow, I have I'm here on the benefit of the council, this family, their home burned down in February. And they came to us in September. That told them at home. Along with that came an issue with well isolation. During the time their house burned down, so they came to us, they had a surveyor come in, they had a septic testing done, they had septic design completed. And at the end of that, there was a distance issue. A well needs to be 100 feet from the septic.
Mhm.
And as much as they could get was 90 feet to the proposed bed.
Is the proposed septic a sand mound?
No, it's an LG system.
Okay.
I don't know if you read my.
I read
Yeah.
the sand mound part, and I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, so where they started, with their house here in a cesspool. Who knows when it went in, 1850, different regulations. The cesspool is 70 feet from the house, from the well.
Okay, so it's already.
So that's been going on.
Okay.
So the surveyor that hired had an issue defining the rear line of the property. So when they did septic testing, the septic system has to be 10 feet from the property lines. So to play it safe, they made it 12 feet until the discrepancy was figured out. So the system they designed was an Elgin system. The Elgin system has a higher level of cleanup with aerobic bacteria of the effluent that goes into the ground. So It's an improvement over the septic system, the cesspool in the ground to more improved. And the distance I came up with actually from the well to the system, was 94 feet. Talking with Hanover, the SEOs, the septic system of a normal type, like a sand mound, would have required a 12 by 50. But when you go to an Elgin system with a cleaner effluent, you can reduce the size down to 12 by 33. Hanover said you still need to maintain 100 feet to the overall space, even though the system's gonna be here.
I'm handling.
Oh, are you?
Yes.
You've got it?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Right, the state says when you're using an Elgin, you have to, for, this considered a new system, you have to show 100%. That you would need
Right.
before the 40% reduction, so in theory, if it doesn't work properly, they have room to go, make it look bigger, so that's why we're saying you need to maintain.
Right,
the best.
and we've done that on new construction.
Without the extra space, what's the distance?
I believe it was
94.
94 to the actual active system right at this point.
Okay.
90 to the,
And it was 90 to the extended extra 40%, would say,
Okay.
that potential future area, if necessary. It would have been, it'd be 90 feet.
This is waivable?
Yeah,
Because you're DEP, right? Isn't like how?
Yeah, so the state has regulations, chapter 7233, which is a well isolation exemption. So the state says that that the homeowner can come in and request the township waive the 100 feet. And in case of a new system, you have to have, you're supposed to have a hydrogeologic study done. And they would also, if the hydro study shows that it won't have a negative impact, the township can consider waiving that distance to any recommendation that the hydrogeologists may have, or just basically saying that the distance is acceptable on there, there won't be a negative impact. And then state also requires the applicant to sign a hold harmless agreement. The SEO, the township, and DEP are harmless if anything does happen to the well, that it becomes contaminated. So that's in the state law allows for that to, for the 100 foot to be waived.
so I had contacted an engineer for the study. But in the meantime, I got George Fetch, the surveyor, to look into it. George had actually, George had surveyed this property before, plus many properties down the street. So George had points to start from that Trout Creek didn't. And he was able to research deeds and get all that closed, where if you read on the thing there, it says area of unknown title.
There's your letter.
Yeah, that's gone now, which allowed us to push the septic back 10 feet instead of 12 feet. And also with the blessing of the SEO, if they bless it, we can shift the system over a little bit and actually improve the distance to the actual system to 100, while the 100% still has a little bit of an arc in it.
Okay, so the actual thing will be, the actual, what do you call it?
Absorption area.
The absorption area actually is 100 feet, but DEP says you have to be.
Right, I talked to Mr. Fetch today, and you can see he can move it between, you know, from that, because of that property line and also the garage. It's not technically considered an occupied structure, you're not living in it. So occupied structure, you're supposed to be 10 feet away from that. If it doesn't interfere with the berms required for this system, it could get a little closer to the garage too, as they go back, it kind of narrows down. So they were running into a problem with.
And Elgin systems are lower than sand mounds that are able to follow the grade.
So the bottom line, talking to George today, it looks like they probably can meet 100 feet with the actual active system.
Right, but just the extra
It's
space.
just might be the extra space that the state requires would be the
And we could juggle around the other one and probably get farther if they wanted to, but can we get?
Well, now that we have a line,
Right.
if we have an established line now that we can, are confident our surveyor's ceiling to,
Right,
we can try and jock it around and.
I mean, I'm almost
So
past
do
the
you-
waiver.
So do you, excuse me, do you need the waiver or don't need
Yes,
the waiver?
do we could.
Well, at this point, I can't, I don't know how much George can push it back
Okay,
to gain the extra.
so I can tell the council, I'm okay, the supervisors. In Upper Mount Bethel Township, where I've been solicitor there now for 28 years. This is very customary for homes along 611 where you're right on top of everyone.
I'm mostly just surprised that,
But you need an agreement so that if someone gets sick or if someone has a problem with that well, they can't later come back to the township and say,
well, it says
you
here,
approve this, so you're on the hook. That's why there's a release indemnification and hold harmless agreement that is prepared, that I have sent already a copy of a template to the township for signature.
Yeah, they said they
Alright,
would provide the.
I'm gonna, well, I
So
mean,
that would be a
welcome-
condition of the
you're
waiver.
welcome to make more questions, but I'm just like to make a motion to recommend the waiver condition upon a, what did you call it, Ron?
Release indemnification and hold harmless agreement.
The condition of that.
Second.
Okay, motion by Mr. Albert and second by Mr. Levenheim. Any questions or comments?
I have one. If you were able to meet the 100-foot waiver, do we need to worry about the hydrogeologic study or do we need to make that a condition of approval as well?
Well, I didn't make that part of this motion because I thought we didn't need it,
Oh,
but if,
apologies.
well, but no, if, to be safe, maybe that should be part of the motion too, that it's on condition of the geologic study and the agreement that we just talked about. Maybe do both to be safe. If
They
you
have to have a
need one-
hydrologic study?
If it's gonna be less than 100 feet, yes, you don't have, the township can't waive that requirement.
Okay, well then I will amend my motion that if it is going to be less than 100 feet, a hydrologic study is also done demonstrating that it is satisfactory and safe.
That's the active system or the 100%?
Whatever were required by DEP to have.
That's just, he's requiring the 100%.
We will.
So I mean,
my point is, you had a cesspool 70 feet away.
I agree,
If the family hadn't collapsed that and filled it in, I believe I could have got a building permit going into that septic system, true?
I don't.
But that's the way I read the
agree
zoning.
with you, and I think,
So we're improving it so much, the hydrogeologic
Yeah.
study
I-
gets complicated.
for me, it's not, I don't
How
think you
many
should have to
people
do.
into their house?
I don't think, I mean, I'm talking to myself, I don't think you should have to do one.
Yeah,
It seems like it's pretty obvious, and it seems like it's a massive improvement. I'm just saying, if I'm not allowed to do that, then I'm not gonna do that.
That's, yeah, that's what I brought copies of it, that's what the state law says, it's not me saying,
Right.
I want you to do it, it's the state saying the township has has to require that as part of a waiver.
So to say this in another way, the township does not have the authority to waive the hydrogeologic study.
Correct, because it's in the
Okay.
state, right?
I don't know how detailed such a study needs to be.
right.
These types are usually pretty simple, they're not.
Right, so I would,
It's not a $10,000 study, it's,
Yeah, to write a letter, he would need $600. To do
Whatever.
additional studies, et cetera, you know.
Yeah.
that's it from there. So it's, you know, it is a burden. My main point is I'd like to be able to go into the permit stage now, tomorrow. So by the time this gets turned around, the building permit is in hand and we can start building for these folks in and out of a home. Again, taking the financial responsibility if the permit isn't issued.
Michael, whatever your amended, motion is, I second it.
Okay, wait, hold on, just to
but
be clear,
okay.
just to be clear. It probably won't get you there. It'll get you most of the way there, but it sounds like you're gonna need to.
Well, I could do that.
You're gonna have
Well,
to.
just getting through the building inspections and through zoning in general. And then it's just a sign off from these guys. Okay, I signed your permit, you got it. All the stuff comes together. Just do it concurrently rather than separately, one after another, which extends the time and the agony and.
Given the state that we're working with, if the board motions to approve this conditionally on the release and indemnification agreement and the hydrogeologic study being received, I have no
We don't need
problem
to see it again.
telling
No.
Ken and the BCO, just saying,
No.
hey, listen, this is coming,
Okay.
please don't hold this up based on this. Just so once we have those things, we can go, yes, move forward.
So we can't start tomorrow.
And I have the release agreement already done in template format.
Okay.
All I need to do is make some changes. And I can forward it to LTS before the week is out.
We cannot give you the authority to start building tomorrow if you do not have.
But we don't wanna start building, I just wanna get the permit going, so the building inspector's gonna see the same thing in 2
Okay,
weeks.
yeah, that you can
That's what
do.
makes sense to me, let's just get that part done, and then it's just a sign up from the SEO, and we're started, I
Yeah,
don't know
no,
why.
that you can do. Based on the way you phrase it, I thought you literally wanted to start construction
No, no,
tomorrow,
no,
and I
not
was
at
like,
all.
yeah, no, we can't do
can't.
that.
Yeah.
But you can 100% get going on the permitting process.
I look at the human side and the common sense side as a builder, and I know I have to listen to engineers and all, but if you look at the common sense side, there's nothing wrong with this. And at least let us get the permit in hand. I agree, I think you should be able to do
without
that. Okay, all right, that's all I have to say. Go, we have to vote.
All in favor of the amended motion?
Okay.
Technically, yes.
Yeah.
Is there any comment on this? I'm sorry about that. All in favor? Aye.
All
Okay.
right, so I'll get the hydrogen deal out.
Yeah.
Can we turn in for permits now?
I'm going to, now that the board has done this, I will send an email to our zoning officer and to base, letting them know that it's on the way and that we can start the process and get
Okay.
stuff moving so we can move this
All
quickly.
right, thank you very much. That's excellent. And I'm sure the family does as well.
Absolutely. Okay. All right, next on our agenda is the discussion on the status of the Delaware Watergate Fire Department, which serves a portion of the township toward Minnesota. Now, I want to clarify that the board will not be making a determination on anything tonight. Merely, this discussion is based upon making sure that our township heard the same thing that Borough Council heard last week. So I've invited Gary Hoffman from Monroe County Control Center to share some statistics with us. Delaware Watergate Borough Council President Lisa Paulette is here, the chief from Delaware Watergate Fire Company. Mike Smith is here. I previously spoke with the chief and Shawnee. They are unable to make it as tonight's their regular business meeting, but they will be looped in on this conversation as well. So with that said, Gary, I'll hear from you first.
Good evening. I'll ask Steve. I think there's some.
Thank you.
So, I was asked by Delaware Borough to compile some data on response of the Delaware Volunteer Fire Company. And essentially what you have is year-to-date number of fire calls that they were dispatched to. And, I think the updated one as of a week ago was there were 59 dispatches and they actually responded to 10 calls now. That there were other situations where they did respond, but they were canceled or, the concern, I think on behalf of the borough, and I know all that's it. Lisa's here, I'm sorry, and concern is, are they getting adequate coverage? That led into a conversation about Shawnee possibly being designated as primary. And let me be clear, we follow what the township tells us to do. Clearly, in the second-class township code, at least, I can't speak to the borough code, but it's very clear that the municipality has the say in who is dispatcher, who has primary jurisdiction in the municipality. There was some discussion about leaving a dual dispatch as it is now. I think I found this morning that we started the dual dispatch of Shawnee and Delaware Borough in the borough of Delaware back as far as June of this year. Does that sound right?
Yes, you restarted actually.
Right. So that means when there's any fire call for Delaware Borough, we dispatch immediately Shawnee and Delaware Fire Company. So the question is, I guess, is I don't know if Shawnee's here.
Yeah, they have the regular meeting tonight,
He
so,
said he couldn't come.
yeah.
Okay, so, if if the borough, wants us to dispatch Shawnee, we will certainly do that, but obviously Shawnee is located in Smithfield Township, and you folks need to be concerned about, you know, who's covered home plate if they're running into a water gap. I'm not getting into funding or anything, that's not my business, but it's, clearly, we will do what we're told to do by the municipalities. If you allow Shawnee to respond outside your area, and listen, they're going, if you say no on a primary basis, they're gonna be going on mutual aid, because if water gap does not respond, we have to go to the next nearest is Shawnee, so that's who we would dispatch anyway, but, you know, whatever arrangement the Board of Supervisors for Smithfield has with Delaware Water Gap Borough is essentially irrelevant to us. We'll do what the municipality tells us to do.
So we have any primary for Delaware Water Gap in?
Well,
Smithfield
that's what I
Township?
was gonna ask, to be clear, is Delaware Water Gap primary without?
In Delaware Water Gap
dispatch?
Borough.
Right.
So take
But-
Shawnee out of the,
Right.
Shawnee, or Delaware Water Gap does have some jurisdiction in
Correct,
Smithfield.
and that's
Correct,
what
that's
we're,
what I wanted
that's
to-
what we're
Yes, they
concerned
do.
with.
Yeah,
Is
They-
they have dual dispatch there or the primary?
well, right now they're dual dispatch, but,
Right,
but, Water Gap does have primary
Primary.
responsibility in
Right.
parts of Smithfield, little bits and pieces. I
Right.
think on Interstate 80,
Yes.
Interstate 80,
Okay.
you know, it's,
Gap Road, maybe? Gap Road.
it's a complicated.
right.
You know, we can send it.
It's essentially right by Minnesink. We have the map on our website.
The panhandle, right? So we're talking about, that's what.
Yes.
The jurisdiction.
So we'll follow the lead of the municipalities, whatever it may be, but, you know, by default, if any fire department, the primary jurisdiction does not respond, we will send the next closest. We do that by closest available, you know, provider.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm not leaving, so if you have any questions, you can ask me.
That's awesome. You guys have any other questions for Gary White? Okay. All right, so with that said, I mean, I don't know that our intention was, you know, to make any change merely based on that basis, but I know, Chief Smith, you wanted to say, your piece just to talk about sort of what you're doing at the moment. I got an email that I forwarded to the board from Mayor Freshborn talking about how he had a plan to work with y'all, so feel free to share from that what you may.
So, my name is Mike Smith, recently appointed chief of the Delaware Water Gap Fire Department. I was the intermittent chief from May until we had our elections last month. A lot of the concerns is, like Gary said, is with coverage area, with manpower and crewing of us getting out of the station. May, our past chief and assistant chief have moved on. We had another chief at the time. We thought it was in the best interest to switch roles because I was second assistant at the time. Due to availability and other issues, we moved me ahead as intermittent. With that being said, I redid the roster. People were worried about changes. So basically what I can say is with the call volume, Shawnee is dual dispatch with us 24/7. And we made that change in May. If by chance we don't make it out, they come out and we have other contingencies outside of that, because there's Marshall Creek helps us on 80 and Stroud Township and Stroudsburg helps other parts of Smithfield if we can't get out as well, as far as certain calls like structure fire, I believe, Gary, like Stroudsburg and Shawnee are coming right away.
Yeah.
As far as some of the calls we have missed, it's basically crewing and the time of the day. We're not the only department that's hurting. I know our borough members were worried about how many people do we actually have in the borough to respond. We have 5 in the borough. Take that into account, time of day, what type of call it possibly could be. We recently have a very big influx, if you look at that sheet, of automatic alarms.
Yeah.
And I can tell you right now, from a firefighter standpoint, me being an officer is different than our guys being firefighters. Getting called out to the same residence once, twice, 3 times, 5 times in a week. Guys get tired, guys get weary, and they do the chief or whoever else can handle that.
I'm sorry to be super dumb. What does apparatus mean in all these notes? I'm sorry.
Oh, if it has no apparatus, it means our truck didn't roll.
Okay.
Yeah. So a lot of times I'll go on scene or the next available officer or a senior member in command will go on scene.
So 26/7 on scene meant someone else
I was on scene.
You were on scene.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
And what it is if there's no need for apparatus to run, we won't leave everything out the station.
Gotcha.
Also, to be completely candid, I know there was a big thing too. I know we're not talking about funding or anything like that tonight. We had issues in the past with our relief audit. And I've, like I say, recently come aware that it was not taken care of. But since I've been in for May, we are trying to rectify the situation. I have been in countless emails with Rosemary Brown. My relief treasurer has been in contact with Rosemary Brown. They are getting us what we need so we know moving forward how to fix everything. And there were recommendations made in the past. I cannot answer as far as why they were not taken. But since I've been in charge, we are doing the right thing moving forward to get everything tight in the books. Outside of that, I don't have anything else. If you guys have any other questions for me, I believe I spoke to Jacob today. I talked to Julia via email, so they have my contact information. And if any other questions, feel free.
What percentage of Smithfield Township is covered primary by Delaware Fire?
Probably what, like 10%?
It's not less than that, isn't it?
It's either 10 or 8, I can look it up.
Can you? if you-
And are those
if you put up the
primary?
map On the screen, just so we can look at that.
Are those primary, or there's dual calls? They go out.
It should be dual. They all should be dual.
Okay. And that's set by this board?
That's set by, in the case of Delaware, got Borough Council established that policy for us to do.
And then this township supposedly set that policy for that 10% that Delaware goes as a dual call?
That was set up in the past by the fire chiefs. And
I think that historically, because there's so little, I mean, there are some individuals that live there, but I think that was the intent, is they're gonna be there quicker.
let me say this doesn't mean these are bad people.
You can't do
Oh,
it.
no, there are, and I'm not insinuating, but there are manpower problems all over the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and in Monroe County. I can tell you that, we're starting to have municipalities look at these response plans. Because do they make sense? Are they calling the next closest available, or are they calling somebody they have an established relationship? That gets on a fine line of maybe not necessarily appropriate.
Yeah, well, I guess the other question is, are you calling who's closest, or are you calling who's showing up? Well, it's probably the other thing too, but.
So the first due, just like ambulance, the municipality tells us who they want first due. Okay, so there's a sample map.
Who says who they want first?
Second,
You said they like ambulance, it's who they want first?
who the municipality designates.
Municipality,
The first due, we say you assign the first due, because you have established relationship with the EMS provider, and that's fine.
and that was just my question. Did this township assign Delaware Water Gap Fire first due on whatever those
I don't
areas?
believe you did. I think that was an initiative by the fire chiefs back
Okay,
when. You can change that. If it's Smithfield Town, you have the absolute say who goes in Smithfield Township first.
Okay.
And all we're saying is, that's fine. Let the system then pick the next closest available based on time of day, who has manpower, who doesn't have manpower. But
Well. Anyone else? Any questions? I know that, Lisa, you're here. Is there anything that you wanted to
Do
mention?
you have any, if you want me to state what our position was with our meeting? I
Oh,
can-
yeah, that would be good, just so we can have that on the record for us too.
Okay, so as it's been stated, the state of Pennsylvania has a problem with recruitment in fire service now. We are a Commonwealth. Majority of the fire companies are volunteer fire companies, and times have changed. When I held our meeting, I tried to be very, very clear that the subject and the matter on board was the fire service for the community. I was not having a meeting to evaluate or reprimand the fire company. They are a volunteer fire company. As the president of the Borough of Delaware Water Gap, I am, along with the council and the mayor, who is our public safety, in charge of public safety, are responsible for the services being provided to the community. We're also responsible for the fire tax that we collect and distributing those funds.
Right.
I am by no means ever want to call a meeting or had a meeting to go over all the specifics and how the fire company is being run. But it came to our attention that the functionality of our primary fire company had changed. And that change causes liabilities with that information. And as you are supervisors, you're given information that something is deficient for your community. With that information, you're responsible for addressing it.
Mhm.
So it was being addressed, not to address the fire company, not to change it, close it. Like I said, reprimand them. I am responsible as a council member to address the services to our community. So we know that in fact, there's been much talk about regionalizing the fire companies in the state of Pennsylvania. That's always been on the table, it's still on the table. But what we have is the fire companies are acting similar to a regional fire company by the way that they conduct mutual aid amongst each other, which is necessary and very much appreciated by our community. What I needed to address was the designation of our primary fire company. And that designation weighs on homeowners insurance, business insurance, legal liability. So those are the matters that are primary to me and that I brought before our council. Our responsibility to the community, our responsibility and liability with the knowledge that the company had some problems. We are not, someone after my meeting and there was someone texting saying, oh, they shut down the fire company. We did not, we cannot, we have no intention to try. They are a volunteer fire company. What we are addressing is who we designate as the primary, although they're all acting as mutual aid with each other and doing dual dispatch. It's a legal liabilities and financial liabilities that we are addressing. We are not addressing how they conduct their business.
Did you change your primary?
We took a vote and our solicitor, although we had meetings all over the place and talked to everyone, advised that we should, consult with our neighboring, no, not hold off. We took a vote to change our primary contingent on our consult with our neighboring communities.
Is that this consult or are you having?
Well, we gotta talk to Shawnee Shawnee has a board, so everybody handles their their relationship with their fire company in a different way. Some communities you go to, they have ordinances that the fire company has to abide by by the two. Shawnee has a board. We need to speak to their board. So I will continue to consult with our neighboring communities as we all work with the same workforce and assistance that we have in place.
I'm just curious, if you decide to change your primary, I assume the biggest change besides being written down and related to insurance, that sort of thing, is the taxes less or?
That's another vote that we have to go back and readdress.
That's a separate tax.
I brought both of those things to our last meeting. After discussion, similar to some of the issues that you deal with, you say, we'll take this part, we vote on this part, we'll hold off, vote on that part, and we come back with the answer to the last question that we had.
Okay.
So, and I see that with that, I expect that on paper, changing it, the primary, does not change what the fire companies are doing now. They're doing mutual aid now.
Unless the money changes, that's the big question.
That is a big question. But if I'm collecting taxes,
Oh, I understand.
I'm, bound to, disseminate those taxes appropriately. That's it.
Thank you.
You guys have any other discussion? Can hear from some folks that. Any public comment? Go ahead, Brett.
How often do you deploy apparatus? Or what is your decision about deploying apparatus to a call that has been repeated? Not to mention, you know, sometimes three or four callbacks. How do you determine if apparatus is gonna go?
It depends on the nature of the call. A lot of the 2 or 3 or 4 times, like I say, most of the time is auto alarms. So whoever's in charge, like if I'm there first or my assistant or any other officer, we go first on scene, see what the alarm is for. We do a quick walkthrough. Most of the time, it's just a faulty sensor or something's wrong. And then we radio back to our station or we radio back to county, canceling departments, and that decides the factor of a truck coming or not.
So the sensor is one thing, but if there's smoke and fire, that's an automatic
Yes,
roll.
yeah, like if I go on scene and I see smoke right away, I'll automatically, our truck will roll. As long as we have a crew there, the truck will go.
Have you considered?
Or if like, if we get the call that says alarm with smoke showing, like we had, an alarm the other day or another day, a couple weeks ago, there was a smoking furnace. So automatically, my assistant chief was first on scene, realized that it was just the furnace smoking, it was not a fully involved structure, we canceled before the truck got rolling.
Have you guys considered deploying drones?
We could, if that's a matter of funding, so we would have to.
I mean, if it's cheaper than you rolling to the scene yourself, and it's a rural area. I don't know, it's just an idea. Sorry, guys.
Well,
It's all good.
With drones, I'm assuming we need somebody to control it,
Yeah.
and that's, again, we're a volunteer service, so who's gonna be around to put the drone in the air? I mean, it would have to be, you go to the station, or say if I have the drone, so it's in my possession, I would have to be on scene to use it. Now, if we only have one drone and I can't make the call if I'm at work or I'm away on vacation, that kind of gets dicey. You would have to have more than one at least.
Thank you.
I'm not sure if this is a question for Mike or for Gary. How many false alarm calls did they have?
I don't work, I mean, I don't have the number at my fingertips, but, I know there's a few, but on the same post, they're a problem county one, automatic filing.
I know there used to be, like, one of the buildings in Water Gap that used to have lots of false alarms. And the borough did, write up an ordinance for, I guess what you would call a nuisance alarm. I don't know if you looked into that or not, but.
No, I have, and the one particular this year that we've had problems with, they have been warned and they received 4 fines. The Borough Hall has the fines.
Okay.
But after we write them up and submit it to the Borough Hall, it's up to them to pursue it and get payment and everything like that. But since I have done that, we haven't had any more alarms from said business.
Sometimes that's secured.
Yes.
Gary, do you have a rough idea of how many of the calls of the 59 were actually in Smithfield Township? I mean, just
I
looking,
don't have that right now, but I can break that out.
that would be great.
Few.
Cause I mean, I think of the missed ones, I count like 5 or 6. Half of the,
Not without actually cross-referencing the incident, the address and.
well, I missed it, they didn't roll that, right? Well, that's what I mean, like, just looking at those, otherwise, not many of them are in Smithfield anyway. Well, I know that we'll give,
I guess I just have one more question. It's more general. I mean, this is our first year collecting tax where directly, I should say, we've always put taxes towards fire, but now it's at a much greater level. I mean, not wanting to put these great organizations with volunteers that are working hard, but is there a review process by which, I know I had conversations when I first started with some of the fire companies around how we decided that split, the dollar split. And some townships are, oh, it's always been this way, it's 25, 25, 25. We tried to do it based on, wanted to do it based on value of homes. But I guess then there's this other area, which is this jurisdiction, which I was under the impression was sort of the fire company made that decision, but now I'm hearing it's not entirely true.
We have a hybrid of those two where it's the proportion of the land and then I think something about the population.
Estimates combined with.
But how does one determine whether or not it's Delaware Water Gap Fire Company that takes care of those or Shawnee Fire Company that takes care of those? I understand how the money would be broken up
Right,
based on the tracts of
so
land.
yes, so that decision, like Gary said, most of these are essentially intact from what the old companies decide, agreed upon at the time.
Okay, maybe an answer.
Yeah, my name is Brian Ogg. I'm fire police captain for Delaware Water Gap Fire Company. I've been part of the company for 23 years now. All that, when you said that all that was designed by chiefs before, we're talking like 4 and 5 and 6 chiefs before.
Yeah.
Like all that, the way they figured that out was
Like 40 years.
for safety reasons. Whoever was closest and can access a certain area fastest, that's where a section of Smithfield Township we got, and that's where Shawnee got.
Mhm.
Now, if you wanna change inside the borough and let Shawnee be primary, on per se, your homeowner's insurance, it says your primary firehouse is 9 miles away when there's a firehouse a mile away.
That's when you start having issues.
You see, that's when you're talking lawsuits.
Well, just to be clear, that's not our determination for inside.
Oh, no,
borough.
I'm just, sorry, I got carried
No, I
away.
just
but-
want
understand.
everyone to understand that, they can make their own separate.
Right,
So every year I get a call from the homeowners, insurance companies, and not only do they ask how close the firehouse is, how many times do they miss calls, how much water do they bring? That's all relative to your insurance rating for that community.
Hmm.
They get into the details, they wanna know, and we send out statistics, it's public information.
Right.
Brian,
Fire
could you just- last name, please.
OGG.
Thank you.
Shawnee Fire Company is like 2 doors down from me, but my insurance is still really high. Maybe I should.
It's called the ISO rating, I forgot.
Oh, is that okay? There's an actual number associated with mine.
We
Okay.
get called by the organization, they call us, we provide the stats, okay, what's the fire department for Delaware Water Gap? Okay, what water do they call, how often do they miss calls?
Just for ratification, the ISO rating is beyond just emergency services, right? It also will deal with your proximity to water, which I think is your culprit.
They want to, do you have a hybrid system, or do they, do they use tank, is it a tank control operation?
Right.
It's involved.
Yeah.
All I'm trying to get at here is a more general question where I feel like in the past when there's still not enough money. We know that too. I should also say, just because there's a fire and EMS tax doesn't mean it solved everyone's problems. We know that it hasn't done that. But as that support gets more and it's more incentivized, does that mean that the townships have a better ability to hold more accountability? And I'm not specifically calling out, I mean, in general. And in that sense, it seems weird that the fire chiefs would decide where the lands are. And it sounds like they maybe don't. The municipality has the right to designate the primary.
We 100% do. It's just no one has touched what was said, like Brian's saying, like 50, 60 years ago.
We set the dollar value for those tracts of land, but we
Right.
didn't set those tracts of land.
Correct.
Okay.
There was no meeting where any of us said, okay, we're gonna carve that out like a zoning map.
Okay, alright.
I think that's where we're gonna leave it for now. We're gonna hear from. Oh, go ahead.
Hi, Howard Ike, former chief of Delaware Water Gap Fire Department. I'd like to speak to about the audits, just the audits. The rest, I'm not there, so I would not like to comment on it all. But I think the information about the audits was wrong. Now, for 18, 19, and 20, the audit came, and those problems were dealt with. Most of them were minutes where the attendance wasn't taken by the previous secretary, and the minutes were not signed by the secretary. That was a big problem. And then there was one check that was made to Brian Ogg for parts needed for equipment. Now, it wasn't a problem with the check. It was a problem with the invoice, because the invoice did not detail what parts were bought. So he went and got an invoice, and that was corrected. And the other thing that was corrected, and Jamie Levy has all these emails and notes and everything from all the communications between the auditor and the fire department. And then the other thing is what equipment belonged to the Relief Association and what equipment was purchased by the fire department. That is probably Mike's, the current chief's, going to be his biggest headache because those records were not kept even by John Siptroth, who was a big advocate for keeping records. So that is going to be the main thing. There was no money misplaced. There was no, there was one check in the 21 and 22 audit that the borough accidentally sent to the fire company, and that check was reimbursed to the relief by the fire department, and that was corrected as well. So there's no problem with the audit except for what equipment belongs to the relief and what equipment belongs to the fire department that needs to be corrected. And that's going to be a painful task to figure out.
Right. Okay. What do you have to say? Thank you for that info. We'll definitely note that. Anyone else? All right, so we'll hear from Shawnee at some point. They had their regular, their organization meeting tonight, so they actually had to elect their officers and whatnot as well. But at this point, we're not looking to make any determination in the township.
We need a table or no?
No,
It's
it's
just
just
a
a
discussion
discussion item.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll leave that. Next, we're gonna discuss lighting ordinance updates. Alex is here to talk with us about that because the county planning commission got back to us.
Yeah.
So I'll let you take it away.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Changing subjects here to lighting. As you correctly
Lighter
indicated.
subject, sorry.
Yeah, there you go. So the county planning commission has reviewed the lighting ordinance. They had 6 comments. So I wanted to see if the board wanted to discuss those comments at all.
Sure.
Yes.
We want to get this one done, so definitely.
Yeah, do you have any, did you get a chance to read the review, or do you have anything
I
you
don't
want to
think
discuss?
did I get the review?
I don't know about the review.
I don't think I
have
saw it.
the highlighted things,
I have the possible additions.
yeah, these are the enforcement things that I know that we wanted to make sure were in this ordinance since we kind of changed the format. So
Yeah.
maybe you want to go over that, because I think generally we were really happy with everything that was in.
What was the, do we get a copy of the letter? Not the letter.
I was not provided a letter from the MCPC, so the only thing in your packet is the possible enforcement stuff at this time. I will email that to you so you have it.
Wait, was there actually a letter? Because I know that we didn't trigger a formal review.
Well,
Right, it was informal.
well, let me clarify. So yeah, there was a formal review sent to the county. The county did a formal review. They gave it back to us. And the review basically just had 6 comments, nothing substantive. They didn't make, you know, it's no major changes here that they're recommending. The main one is basically, it was uploaded on, I believe this was uploaded on the website last week at some point. So it's out there. And anyway, number 4, they basically said the township's encouraged to discuss the appropriateness of controlling lighting through a separate regulatory ordinance. They also,
As in they think it should be incorporated into all the other ordinances?
you're encouraged to discuss that. So right now, what the township is proposing is taking having a standalone ordinance for lighting.
Right.
That is then referenced in the zoning and saldo.
Sorry, standard, separate chapter.
Separate chapter.
You're saying ordinance, it has to be a separate, okay, I was confused.
Yes, no, I misspoke, sorry, yeah, so basically that's and that, we would be, I believe, when the only township in Mount County that does it that way.
As opposed to being part of zoning.
As opposed to, having all this text pasted into zoning, into saldo, and then maybe a standalone for enforcement. And the planning commission had actually recommended this approach. They had recommended a standalone so that it could be enforceable through the code enforcement officer as opposed to the zoning officer.
Right.
And then reference the ZO and reference the saldo so that if somebody comes in for land development, building permits or any of that stuff, they have to then meet the regulations in the standalone ordinance.
I got a question on this point, because I've thought about this, maybe for you, Ron, more so, but this has come up now a couple times, lighting and, what was the other thing? Noise. We're taking it out of zoning, making it its own chapter. What is the benefits of being in zoning versus being out of zoning as a chapter?
Well, I can't say there's benefits. Let me just say to you that it enables a challenge to not be made against a township. If you are putting zoning regulations and standalones that should be in zoning that deal with land use,
Yes.
they can be challenged and say that this is
not real
this
because
isn't proper. This has to be part of zoning. You're dealing with how the land is being used. And it should be part of zoning.
Or
So-
saldo, depending on what.
Well, saldo was, it deals with division of land, not how the land is being used.
How it develops too.
Well, that's land development as opposed to subdivision, but in any event, that's the potential problem you have by doing a standalone, is that someone can come in and say that this should be zoning, and this ordinance should be void because there should be a zoning use.
I mean, obviously, there's a bunch of benefits of not putting it in there.
Yeah.
In that you stay at the zoning hearing board, you can.
Supervisor Lovenheim has made that clear many times, that you can move more quickly, you don't have to jump through
So again,
many hoops, et cetera.
But I just don't want us to get caught with our pants down where we're trying to skirt issues and only to realize that, you were skirting issues. You
I
can't do
can't
that.
predict what a person or a company or some other person would do with respect to the ordinances. That's your call, that's a
But
policy call.
do you go through a different, I'm sorry, I'm getting educated in front of everyone, but, do you go through a different appeal process besides just skipping zoning hearing board? If you were appealing a decision that was a separate chapter from zoning, then you would?
Well, you're not before the zoning hearing board.
That's the only one you skip.
A standalone would be before your local district judge, who would then decide the case, whether it be whether you have determined it should be a summary appeal, which is a criminal matter, or whether it should be a civil enforcement proceeding, which is civil. That goes before the local magisterial district judge. They make a decision, and then that is appealed to Monroe County Court. So it's,
And
in
then
the zoning, you go before the zoning board, they make the decision, and then that goes before the Monroe County Court, if you want to hear it.
So back to your point, just to clarify, at some point, there might be some case that someone could say that because this is an ordinance that relates to land use, it's somehow void because it's not found in zoning.
You could make that argument, sure, that argument could be made.
Well, and that is made because the Pennsylvania's, our state representatives have given us the authority to govern land use through zoning only.
Well, no, you can govern land use through other areas.
So why is it-
However,
Right.
this deals with the use of land in the sense that you're dealing with lighting, signage, noise, et cetera. You're not dealing with,
I get it, okay.
other kind of things that,
Let me-
deal with.
Give me your legislative side.
It's not really legislative, it's more like, at the end of the day, zoning officer doesn't, agree with what you're doing, it's in violation. They send you the enforcement notice, you get, 30 days to agree, otherwise that's, if you don't disagree, then you're conclusively presumed, essentially, in violation with the zoning hearing board, and then they're good to go file a citation. But if you disagree, then you're gonna have, it could take, remember, the enforcement on.
I understand the value of
Right.
not putting it in zoning.
Right,
My
right.
question is, why would you ever put anything in zoning?
Well, what I'm gonna say is, because zoning is very different than your general powers. I would place this under general powers. Now, zoning is also considered policing power, but this is not specific necessarily to the land use, because we're talking about, your basic quality of life stuff. So this is, if you lived in East Stroudsburg Borough, they don't have this discussion because boroughs, they have a police force and whatnot. So if someone has the wrong lighting, like they're getting the police, or, if it becomes a public disturbance, that type of thing, or if it's, purely zoning, and I mean, like, that's at the early stages when you're doing land development. you know, then you can make justification that way. What I'm saying is, you have to think of this as being able to call the lighting police when this happens and then not have to wait 30 days. Like, they might have to wait 30 days to go to the district court, but you're saving.
I understand why we would do it, again, I understand why one would put it, I'm just trying to understand why we would ever put anything in zoning, basically.
Well, because there are some things that are very clearly going to be zoning, like the thought of the zone is.
As in like the use of the space for a purpose.
Correct.
And lighting is done in all uses. But we are breaking it down by zone.
And I think that maybe is where you can have that question, but I think on the general enforcement of. The reason why we're not doing it with zoning beyond just, that quick enforcement, you know, skipping the ZHB, it's also. If you have existing lighting right now, you could probably try to make the argument, oh, we're grandfathered in or whatever. But when you go to change it, you don't necessarily get to rescind their land development approval because their lights are too bright. But this, we get to go and find them and say, hey, you really have to change these lights or pay that fine.
Okay.
So that's the advantage here. But when you're getting into other stuff, I mean, the reason why we have zoning is because it's more or less the foundation, and every other chapter is how you do it, but that's why you have supplementary regs. Like, for example, the airport, when that was functioning, that had, you know, it has its own supplementary chapter that talks about their specific regulations because that use warranted that much.
Okay.
But you wouldn't say airplanes are too loud, you know, we need to deal with nuisances. You would then deal with the zoning on that.
Okay. Well, I was curious why we had the supplementary as well, and it wasn't just built in, it's not.
Well, I think a lot of what is in zoning is historical too. It was just convenient to do it that way. And in less complicated times, it was like, what difference does it make?
Well, I'm sorry to make this point go too long, but I just want to make sure when we start doing these things moving forward, we understand why. If it has to be in zoning, it should be in zoning. I mean, I'm very happy for this not to be.
It's because I mean, at the end of the day, the reason why other stuff deals with zoning is because it deals directly with the construction of it, which of course, yeah, you get into your land development ordinance on that. But when deciding where and how things can be, it's that this is how something exists in perpetuity and not just, you know.
Right, well,
Yeah, it's a policy decision by the supervisors. I, as a lawyer and overly cautious, I would put everything in zone if it was my choice. Not my decision to make, the policy decision. If you guys want to do standalone, you make that policy call and then we move forward. And I will support you with that call.
I guess to say, Alex, there's no effective way to split the baby on this, right? Where you have the enforceability for everything separate from, I guess what I'm asking is there a sufficient distinction with the new enforcement mechanisms that when you regulate what type of lighting you have by zone, is that really related to zoning or is that more related to, you know, general authority?
Is there sufficient distinction between the enforcement powers, the potential standalone ordinance and what would be applicable to Saldo, like land development plans? Is that kind of what you're asking?
I think you're sort of saying, if we said right now, all right, split them up into three, some standalone, some in the Saldo, some in the zoning. Is that, and I don't know what that's.
You could do that.
Is there parts of this that really do belong in zoning?
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, most municipalities that I recall, a lot of them have it just in Saldo, a lot of them also have it in Saldo and zoning. So I would say another thing that wasn't mentioned is your planning commission wanted this as a standalone for these criteria for subdivision land development as well as enforcement. They had originally proposed a standalone nuisance enforcement chapter, a chapter just for the standards for like Saldo and zoning. And then those standards would be referenced in the Saldo zoning, and they wanted it that way because if you do tweak that standalone chapter, then you don't have to go back and tweak the Saldo, then you don't have to tweak, it just makes it easier to make changes in the future.
So that's what I'm asking, is it effective to say that it really is truly completely distinct? you know, where it warrants entirely one single chapter. Because I know that, you know, for industrial uses, we're saying this lighting, is that more applicable there? Because when we're talking about enforcing bad lighting, you know, this is the distinction, like when we talk about roads, we want to have general standards so people can, you know, meet that, but there's not a lot we can do about a current bad private road.
Yeah.
So in the future, we're just not going to have new private roads. You know, there's very little we can do on the existing, you know, irregular ones, right? So what I'm saying is, do we need to have a similar split here, like Michael was kind of asking? Or is it appropriate to move forward with advertising, like presuming we're good with all this, which is modeled after our nuisance ordinance? Is that effective enough, or do you think that we should split it?
I would honestly defer to Ron, and honestly, I would defer to Ron on this and go with him. Maybe I tend to be overly cautious as well, and you know.
I believe that if you have these standalones, your saldo and your zoning refers to those ordinances.
Yeah.
That you need to refer to ordinance number 132 for lighting as amended, so if it changes, you don't have to keep going back again. I think that you're probably okay.
Same as signage, it's the exact same conversation we're gonna have.
That's
Signage, same deal, okay. Noise, same deal, okay.
right, because I think we're trying to separate truly lighting, like the actual physical lights, from the uses at the fundamental level.
But the light in, yeah, gosh, this whole definition of use, we're gonna get crazy here. I don't have a problem with it, I mean, we were asked to discuss it, we've just been discussing it, so that's.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with it being separate, but I like, what Ron is saying is, let's make sure that in both the saldo and zoning, the chapters are referenced.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that I think is always our goal, to do that.
so
And then you, obviously, to do that, you need to amend the saldo and the zoning
As well.
to make that, even though.
Well, we
it
can have an
seems-
ordinance that does both those
It
things.
seems, yeah, you do in order to do
Yeah,
both. It
But from
seems
that
sort
point
of-
on, we don't have to amend them because the amendments would be in the standalone ordinance that would just refer to them.
You can't have them refer to the saldo, the saldo's gotta refer to that.
That's what I mean.
Yes.
But in other words, you can make some changes in the standalone ordinance, which will
Well,
carry.
moving forward, yes, initially, however, you need to have ordinances that say we are accepting this as part of this. Yeah.
So Alex,
Yeah.
hearing this, I assume it's appropriate at this point to get a draft that includes everything you've just described and
It's
these
definition.
enforcement and definitional changes that you provided to us, so we can hopefully get that in the hopper then. I think at the end of the day, we're pretty much good with what is in there. We've been through it quite a bit, and certainly the planning commission had been.
Yeah, I would probably recommend, simply because this is a unique thing that the community is doing here.
Yeah.
I would advise the board to have this enforcement language at minimum reviewed by your solicitor.
Right.
And so this is gonna, I believe the plan is for this proposed new language to go to your planning commission and get their.
I guess what I'm saying is, can you just draft the total package and then both Ron.
Incorporating this.
And the planning commission can review that, including.
I could put it all in one package and have it back to you by your meeting next week.
Could you can you do me a favor as well, and just see if in the state of Pennsylvania, there's any examples of lighting being contested because it wasn't found in zoning? If there's no examples, I feel very comfortable.
That's probably case law.
Case law or signage? I mean, it's the same question. We're doing this because it seems like it's a great idea. I just don't wanna.
If you have a noise ordinance too, you're working.
Noise as well. Some people do it in, some people do it out.
I will see what I can dig up through. Ryan, which is a well-known authority on zoning, so.
Thank you.
I have, those books at my office, and I will see if I can find something with respect.
At best, I'm curious for zoning, sorry.
And also
Yeah, which
remember,
things.
with respect to the enforcement provisions.
Yeah,
If you're gonna refer them, or if the saldo's gonna refer to them, then it also has to say, and the ordinance and this provisions for enforcement under the saldo or the zoning are not gonna apply to those.
right.
It's gonna apply to that, so it has to be a little bit of some.
Cause
Nuance.
our
Some work in the
signage, our sign, draft sign ordinance also has enforcement elements in there, so we'll
Right.
have to do the same thing.
Okay. So let's go there. We honestly don't expect you to have to do that by the 17th, because we're probably gonna have a full plate that meeting, so.
And I won't be there
Take-
anyway, because it's the
Yeah.
third Tuesday, it's, you know.
Yeah,
it
so
changes
take your
schedule,
time
it
and-
Changes what I do.
Let's aim to discuss this probably at the
January.
the second or third meeting in January.
Do that.
Okay. From there, I want to have a brief discussion on housing in the township.
Comment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
If I'm not mistaken, the lighting, ordinance is derivative of the dark sky energy. And
Yes.
when I've heard the term at the zoning, at the planning commission, that light, one of the bases is called light trespass, as well as audio trespass, but light trespass specifically here. And that's how it's, can be enforced. However you want to enforce it, but if you have a light that is going, that is blasting your
Oh, yeah.
neighbor, that's a, I don't know if it's a zoning thing or what, but that's how they're,
You mean
That's-
spillage, light spillage?
no, it's not spillage, it's trespass.
Hmm.
In other words, you point a light at somebody, you're trespassing on them with light, essentially. If you have a property that has like glaring to the mirror, your light is trespassing their property. Same thing. The dark sky initiative is what we got. The planning commission is looking, using that term, so this FYI.
Awesome. Thank you.
If I may just coattail on, but just said hi, everybody.
Sure. Hey, Russ.
It exists in zoning, because I've been doing my research, and it exists in zoning 23-303 prohibited uses in all districts, ordinance 187, item H, artificial lighting of any kind with light sources which create glare beyond the lot lines.
Right.
Clearly, you guys are down the highway on that. Is what you're doing looking to supplant and bolster that ordinance?
Yes, we're trying to make it more directly enforceable.
Thank you. It'll ameliorate hopefully what I sent you that photo of, Robert, which is pretty garish.
Please do.
Well, and zoning is limited because if it's been there for zoning or it's hard.
Right.
There's a number of reasons why it's hard to enforce in zoning as opposed to standalone, which is why I just want to understand why one wouldn't just put everything outside.
Okay.
Mr. Pride, if I could,
Sure.
on the same subject, but Ray Mitchell on Craig's Meadow Road.
Mm.
The first house on the right.
Yep.
And you hit Craig's Meadow, we moved there 40 years ago, we were the fourth house on the right. They ripped the other houses down,
Yeah.
so, but, the lighting, I talked to Mr. Jackson last week, and I know you're putting this all together.
Mhm.
So I just wanna say, at my house, the lights from Lewis's Ice Cream,
Uh,
from Rocco's, the automotive, and M&S, they shine on our house and the other neighbors around me. They're the high intensity LED lights. And, you know, the businesses are fine, they're all nice people and they're,
Right.
you know, but, when I say shine, if you look out tonight, even with the fog, they shine out. Like Lewis's started out with one LED light, now they have four.
Right.
And they shine right through on our house.
Right.
They have blackout lights, now summertime, no problem,
Yeah.
right, all the leaves and so on.
One
But
thing I was successful, because this came up the planning commission with, is the same problem with Pocono Beer on Route 209, you know, and also Smoking Joe's.
Mhm.
And I convinced them to turn the lights down, to angle them down, and it seemed to work. As long as they're not shining out, they're shining down like this.
Well, a couple of years ago, I talked to Mr. Wolf, because Rocco's was the first one to put up the LED lights, the high intensity lights, which is not on the 209, it's on the Franklin Hillside.
Now they all have.
Yeah, they start out with one, and now there's four on the property, so you have a lot, and believe it or not, the furthest one away from us is, the M&S,
Yeah, it's
And
horrible.
that one in the apex of the roof
Uh-huh.
shines right, it's like a train light
Yeah.
on a locomotive. It shines and it's, you can see it if you ride by there tonight or
Yeah.
anytime. The amount of lights from Lewis's shines up in the trees and it comes over,
Well,
you
that's
know,
spillage.
it's excessive.
It's really not allowed.
It's not a lot.
And one of the problems is getting, the zoning office to actually come down on them.
This will make it a little easier.
Well, this is why, when I saw it posted, for
Yeah.
the lights and so on, that, and I talked to Mr. Jackson last week, that, you know, my wife said, you better get down there, so here I am, and it's important to us, because not only us,
Yeah.
it affects, you know,
Sure.
probably 4 or 5 houses right
So we
next
think,
there.
the first meeting in January, we can have a dog, hopefully it's good.
Yeah.
Then we would start the clock, because we would share it with, we'd start advertising, we'd share it with planning commission, we'd start Monroe County Planning Commission, before we can vote on it.
I understand, it's just like the noise ordinance, everybody here did a great job on that, it took a long time, but I
And we still gotta
understand.
enforce that, too.
Well, still.
Still working, yeah.
It's a work in progress, but it's going toward the positive. And we're gonna need that in a growing town, I mean, with the Wawa section, whatever, you know, that, with
Right,
all the lights there and so on, and it's something that's needed now, just like the noise ordinance.
right.
And
Luckily for
I
new
think it's great.
construction, it should be in this, it should be there.
Yes.
Wawa should be, that's the whole thing about this, is new construction, we're largely good.
Yeah,
The lighting is required when they're doing those developments and the good thing about LEDs, I mean, LED isn't the evil, but that's actually allows more control also. So ideally, it's just, we should be able to control
We
that.
should, the thing with the LED, the flat
They're bright.
LEDs, they
Yeah.
shine
Those are.
every
flats.
ways, and they're great, and I'm all for light.
yeah,
But it should have the safety and the security, and that's what they have,
right.
right? Safety when
Has to be
the public is there,
Angled a
but,
little bit further down.
Yeah.
or hoods or whatever, I know
Yeah.
they sell hoods with them, they probably don't want it, you know, it's an expense. But
No,
that's
it'll
all
be
they have to
required
do, and, you know, and if you go by there tonight or anytime when you go by, you
Sure.
see it's a tremendous
All the
amount of
time.
light. It doesn't affect a lot of people, but just like the noise ordinance, right, Mr. Booth, it affected him and other people more up there, and I was here, I think it's
Right.
important for the
This has
town
been
to have
an
these.
enforcement issue as long as I've been in this township. And, I can tell you, I've gone out and tried to plead with Mohammed, turn his down.
Oh, they're terrible.
With Phil, sort of, I've never approached Rocco, but I think they'd be more amenable than anybody else to cooperate.
Like I said, I don't wanna cost them anything to put hoods on or whatever, but I think when I talked to Mr. Jackson, I think that's what this is all about, getting a little teeth into this and
He's got
saying,
a
look,
right to
you keep
have
the
a
light
peaceful
on your
existence.
property and don't.
Well, another thing that they've done is put the lights on the buildings, what they really should do is put the lights out on poles shining on the lot and the building, so they don't
Yeah.
shine on your property, because they're only aimed at the building and their parking lot.
And the house right next to Lewis is on, I don't know if they're renters there or, but regardless, if you look at they have a light shining right on the side of that
The
house.
one with the.
I don't know how
flag.
those people put up with
Is
that.
this up on the hill there?
Right next to it, right next to the lot, same side as Lewis's,
Oh,
the
yeah.
white house that sits right there.
Yeah,
Because, you know, Dollar General, they're good with their lights, they all face down.
Yeah.
The, Social Security St. Luke's building, been there a long time, their lights are fine, it's just the
right,
one started and everybody else,
yeah,
you know, so
absolutely.
just hopefully, you know, this is what we're going for then, I guess, right?
January,
Try to-
yeah. Basically, February, you'll see a full ordinance that
Great,
we'll vote on.
thank you so much.
Hey,
All right,
absolutely.
appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Yes.
Sir.
Right, we all went to, the housing summit, More Front Doors that Pocono Mountain Visitors Bureau and Pocono Mountain United Way hosted. Julia, do you wanna give a couple of takeaways on that and how it might relate to us?
Sure. In short, there were about 350 participants there. It was held at the Kalahari about 3 weeks ago. It was a culmination of townships, municipalities, builders, different people, organizations in the community that help different styles of people. among many different types of hardships, and the discussion was around, at the core, housing in Monroe County. In just Monroe County.
All four counties.
Yeah, yes, in all four counties. Long story short, we're running about 2,000 houses short. And this has a lot of effects on a lot of different people. A lot of what we heard while we were up there was, it's very expensive to build houses. We really have nowhere to go for parents who are aging, who need flats, and, no lawn care and maintenance to do. People who are single moms are struggling to find houses that they can afford while taking care of their children. And the list went on and on, grandparents, veterans, everyone is hurting right now for housing. And the discussion became, how do we get people into homes? One of which, and why we're talking about it now, is what can a municipality do on the zoning end of things? There's kind of two-pronged approach here. First one is public outreach and education to make people aware of the different programs that are available if they are struggling. But also, what can we do as a township to allow people who are struggling to find homes, to make it easier for builders to build those homes that we are short of in our township. This isn't saying, obviously, we don't want to develop everything. This is not it. We are looking at the people who are living here now, who, maybe have nowhere to go. And how do we, as, a township and local government, make sure that the residents that we have can continue to stay here, age in place in their community if their house has 2 levels and they're, suddenly need an area that has 1.
Now, I pursued some of this with Tom Campbell, who is from United Way, who was one of the organizers of this conference, and also several of the local builders who actually have projects in development in Smithfield. And the problem is, it's like, is it chicken or is it egg here? The developers are saying, yeah, we'd be interested in this, but show us what we can do and how we can actually make these projects work economically. And just for an example, for instance, in New York for years, I don't know if they still have it, they developed what are called 60-40 buildings, where if 40% of the building was for people below the median income of the area, the developer got someone a tax adjustments in tax forgiveness for a period of years, so they could afford to build the part of their buildings that were for lower than median income. The state made great speeches at this conference, but when it comes down to what exactly they'll do, it's very muddled. In other words, what we need, I think, is something where we can say to a builder, look, here's what you can expect if you do this here. Here are the state grants that are available. Here are the state low income interest loans that are available. Here is the tax relief that's available. So a builder can factor this in and figure out if it works for him. And they want to make it work, but it's got to work economically. When I go back to the state, it's like, well, you got to apply. Well, you can't apply until you know what the rules are. And there don't seem to be any rules that are hard and fast where we could say as a municipality, all right, we can pass an ordinance saying you can get this, this, and this, and we'll help you with this. But what is it, this, and this? It's very fluid. And I personally went through something like this about 4 years ago when we passed the economic development zone ordinance. Suddenly, we had the ability to have mixed use buildings where commercial was on the first floor and apartments could be above that. And I went to HUD thinking, well, this is a great idea. We can build low-cost apartments here, except they don't have any provision for mixed use. And I even went to Washington and I got a lobbyist to represent me to HUD, trying to find somebody who we could talk to. We never did. Then I went to the state and I went to DCED. They didn't have anybody. Then I went to the Northeast Conference or something. They didn't have anybody. Finally, I just gave up, because here's an idea where you say, this is obvious. right? This is great, but there's no way to do it. And I wish Tom was here, because I'd love to throw this back on him and say, look, you give us what we can put into an ordinance where a developer knows that these are the things he could apply for, and this is what he would get if he got, if it was granted to him. Then we can get developers interested, but right now, it's just all over the place.
Let me just say that part, I think it is actually much simpler than you say on some things. The new administration has PA sites funding, which is strategic investment in,
Isn't that for homeless people?
No.
Are you talking about the $10 million?
PA sites is a $400 million, issuance that DCD has domain over, which connects brownfields or existing unimproved property, which allows them to get money from the state to connect them to the utilities, get funding for the roads and the site preparation, flattening the place, all the stuff that is cost prohibitive. So now that does exist. And I think on our end, what does it mean is we already have, you can see, we were ahead of the game when it comes to almost all of these things compared to all of our neighbors. A couple of them had similar, setups. But I think what we need to do is evaluate, what type of housing of each category do we already have, and then how much is the
Well,
demand?
it seems a general argument for more R2, right? R2
Right.
districts. The other thing they didn't mention, but was clear at least in one of the breakout groups was, Airbnbs, not talking about bed and breakfast, but Airbnbs are a huge culprit.
Right,
Which is super interesting though, because in that room are half the people there,
that homeowner,
that make a lot of money, including the Visitors Bureau.
yeah,
And I'm gonna be caught on tape saying that, that's fine. They make a lot of money from short-term rentals, even though when you look at the numbers, it's basically the number one reason why we have 2,000 homes. Now, this, not in this township, because
Right.
this township is not allowed, but the majority of townships, you can have, short-term rentals. And by the way, when I mean that, I really am referring to absentee, people that live outside the county that own a home, that rent it out. That's a huge number. I think just Monroe lost 800 units over the last 4 years to that. And it just so happens to be the same number, about 1,000 that were needed that didn't have. But that's not a conversation that group wanted to have, because it was developers,
Right.
builders, and short-term rental owners. And the next day, by the way, the Visitors Bureau, I sent it to you.
Yeah.
The next day, the Visitors Bureau invited people on their email list to attend the short-term rental conference around buying your short-term rentals.
Yeah.
Which I will publicly say is ridiculous that came out the next day.
Agreed.
Because it completely defeated the purpose of everything that was discussed.
Slap in the face.
Agreed.
It's a slap in the face. Anyway, sorry, I got a little heated there.
It's fine, it's how
I like you.
pretty much everybody feels.
No, so that's an added argument to not allow absentee landlords short-term rentals, because it's still an issue. You don't want to lose homes. Because we do need more front doors for people that live in them all the time.
But looking at Smithfield, we don't have Airbnbs.
Well, there's some out there grandfathered in, but we don't have them allowed.
There's
Yeah.
lots of them, I was just looking at it before, there's tons of them.
Around you, they're pretty much all legal though.
Because they're in the PRT.
They're not,
I don't have a problem with Airbnbs per se, except I understand the housing shortage.
yeah.
Yeah.
I guess the point I was gonna make is generally, like based on what Julie was saying, is relief anywhere in housing produces relief everywhere, because right now there's a whole bunch of people that cannot downsize because there is no senior housing. There's very limited availability, wait lists that are years long, and then there's just period not enough of them that exist. There's a bunch of people, my age, that are struggling because in this market, when the average home sale is like $300,000 and interest rates are still high, you run into that where it's both almost cost prohibitive to build and cost prohibitive to buy, where the median rent used to be $1,100 here a month.
2,500 is.
Pre-COVID, yeah, so now it's skyrocketed, and you're not getting like $1,000 worth, I don't know how many square feet I have. But I guess what I was going to say is, we have all these areas where you have utilities that are already there, but mixed use in a structure is still kind of not the trend around here. It was briefly something that could have worked, but that happens in a downtown setting. I'm saying it's less likely that you're going to get people that want to tear down a bunch of wood so they can build, multifamily. They want to be closer to those, highways and the commercial corridor. I think that's something that we can look at.
Well, what I'd love to see in our ED zone, in our enterprise zone, is us add something, a new incentivized development plan, which says, if you build so much of your development, your next development, at less than market rate, based on median income and so forth, we as a township, if you can prove that you can do this, we'll give you relief on X, Y, and Z, okay? I don't know what it is because I can't get all this information, but I would love us to be.
Don't give up my sidewalks.
Yeah.
I think we need
But
more
I'd
sidewalks, and that will make this
Because the
easier.
developers don't want sidewalks.
I would love to see us in the forefront of this. It's something, we've been in the forefront of many things in
Yeah.
our ordinances and changing things. We even talk about lighting in dark skies. Nobody has anything like that. But what we need is something for housing. And where it's incentivizing people to go into the ED zone, build apartments. And there are 3 active developers. There are more, but 3 really active developers. We're interested in it. But what they're saying is, what are the rules? Where do we get relief here? Where do we go with this? Where do we go with the state? And
also-
it's very difficult to find the information.
And what I have long believed is you can build more and preserve more open space at the same time if you have the appropriate density.
Yes,
Because I'm not a fan of, like I said, tearing up a bunch of woods to build apartments. You don't necessarily need to do that,
well,
you know?
I think it's a consensus among the 3 of us that our mission here is to build up the density of certain areas of the township and keep the rest of it in open space.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean,
I
I
hope-
think, well, yes, I think that's what I'm saying, because you don't want everywhere to eventually blend in and all be the same, because we know that there are, basically 3 distinct parts of the township. Maybe even 4 if you wanna call the Panhandle, where they're not quite Shawnee, but also not quite, in the center with Marshall's
Carabao.
Creek, yeah. So I think there are different ways that we can incorporate, those individual characteristics in those spots. Now, there are some places that have ordinances that incentivize, based on a point system. I don't know if you've reviewed any ordinances. I know it's probably more in like Bucks than it is in like Northampton or Lehigh, but if you're within a mile from a grocery store, that's, 5 points. If you're within a mile of a pharmacy, if you have sidewalks, all that adds up, and then you can have more density, and then not have to go through as much of the issue with the impervious surface, the lot coverage. I would like to think, maybe we could try something like that, kind of the same way that when we look at preserving the character of, say, the village in Shawnee or different parts of Marshall's Creek, we want to have stricter aesthetic rules that meet, what that community looks like and, don't change it. I think there are ways to do that on housing too, but I guess at the same time, there's like 3 projects that will probably yield significant benefit over time that are in the works now, but it's gonna be like 2-3 years before we see them built out.
What are the apartments that were going behind St. Luke's? I thought that was for retired people and that, right?
Oh,
He
there's
still has
three
that
parts.
plan, but he has to finish the road before he's allowed to
Correct.
get an HOP for that.
Okay, so even
He
if,
doesn't
I
have-
mean, that was supposed to be how many
Correct.
apartments?
That's right.
Even if you would start a new one, like you said, that's gonna take just as long as what you're
But
saying.
Tammy, that was never below market rate. It might be over 55, but it wasn't any deal for
Right.
people over 55.
What deal are you talking about giving them?
Well, so.
Because they have a deal, they don't have to pay taxes then for so many.
No, so it's not actually that. So the way that works is the difference, the increase that they're paying
Versus Lura.
goes toward retiring the debt for the road construction on 209, the public improvements. So they are paying taxes, and then at the end
They
of
just
it,
don't get it.
they just pay
They go to-
much more taxes. So,
Okay.
at the end of that, I don't forget what year it is at this point, period, but at the end of that period, right now, we get 22% of the increase of the value of the land. And at the second half of the TIF, we get 80% essentially, so it flips.
Ask
So-
AI to explain tips and you do a
There's
better
really
job.
no great explanation. It's like a great tool that has no good explanation. I was just gonna say real quick before I ask Christine, there's like 3 other projects that depend on like road realignment. So Dr. Khan, who was going to build the Westfield Commons, Westfield Hospital is going to build Westfield Commons, which is multifamily and commercial. It's a mixed use project along Franklin Hill Road and 447, but that's going to require the realignment of the road. So they've got funding for that, but there's now almost there coordination with the school district to turn over the area where the traffic signal is, so that can be realigned. And then there's others that are proposed but not yet filed, that'll be closer to where Smithfield Gateway is. I think it was Hillside or Islandburg, I forget which one. So there's already some over there, but this will be more and closer to 209.
But
So-
you're, so what did Robert say? But they're not for
Oh,
people for.
Sorry, that was the original point I meant to answer. So
Type of thing.
in New Jersey and in some other states, even in the more rural counties, and I mean like way more rural than even like the West End of Monroe County, they have provisions where, say, when you get approval, 20% of your total units have to be below market rate. And that's in order to secure their approval. So that is a fairly common thing. It is not yet a common thing in Pennsylvania because there's no law to require that, like for all of that. So we'd be talking about more or less tailoring a section of the ordinance to allow that to happen, depending on, you know, the cooperation between the developer and the township. So it's something that's not really novel, it's just not mandated. So in New Jersey, it is mandated. Every new development, you have to have that and also contribute toward that development. So that could potentially be something Pennsylvania has at some point.
On that note, there is a survey that Pennsylvania, state of Pennsylvania has put out
Yes.
on this exact subject, because it's not just a problem in our area, it's a problem across the entire state.
Right.
Maybe, can you put that survey up on the website?
Yeah, we'll put it on as a banner.
It's for anyone that wants to basically give their 2 cents on this exact subject and what you think might be good solutions and what are the problems. You can click on that link and give your 2 thoughts. I don't know what they're gonna do with it, but let's go to us, that's for the state.
Yeah. You're your hand.
So, do we know what the percentage of low-income housing in Smithfield Township currently is?
Depends on the definition of low income housing.
Yeah, so one of the things that I wanted to do is more or less figure out exactly what type of housing we have in each sect. Because we do have some of that moderate or affordable workforce housing, whatever new term they want to call it. And then we also have some that are just market rate, plenty of single family. I want to see of like the 4,000 or so housing units that we have, what are in each category. We don't have a definitive
Okay,
number on that yet.
okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
This is not, by the way, this big thing is like, we're not talking about section 8 housing.
Right.
Not the same. Talking about, mostly we're talking, oh, actually, it was United Way event, so it talked about ALICE, which is asset limited, income constrained and employed, so. This is visitors area, and so a lot of employees here are. Hospitality, so they're making less than sort of market rate, can't necessarily afford everything, so it's about that tier. We're not talking about Title 9, what was it called?
Section 8.
Section 8, so that's it.
So to piggyback on that, have we, or should we consider some sort of campaign towards hospitality business owners to maybe up their pay and,
Well,
yeah.
I think, I mean,
Good
of
luck.
course, that would be great, but at the end of the day, I don't think that's the problem alone, because even if they did pay enough, there's not enough
There's not enough
housing
money
units,
in the-
period.
Well, again, Airbnb is,
Well,
that's
not only
the problem
that,
across the country.
But
It is
it's not in
just here.
Smithfield.
But, and that's the thing, so it's much less a problem here, like. Almost none of the people I went to high school with are still living here.
My
It's
10
impossible.
years at the vacation bureau,
Yeah.
my biggest job, you've seen me and I would go toe to toe all the time. We would talk about how wonderful hospitality jobs are because they offer flexibility. And I would say, but they don't pay.
Yeah, I had the
So-
conversation with the general manager of Kalahari, he said, some of us make like 100, I said, yeah, but not everyone's an engineer, man. I said, a lot of my friends are lifeguards, and that wasn't $140,000 a year.
Yeah,
I know.
nor should it be. I mean, I get it, but
No.
pay more than.
But I mean,
Well,
one of the things that I've talked about with my state hat, for the moment while I have it was. We have a lot of these corporations like Kalahari, like Santa Fe. I think that although it makes it a little bit more complicated for like their employees' taxes, because it's a perk. I think it would be great if they would actually construct some housing that's, you know, on campus, because actually, a number of places do that, East Shawnee, I think, ended up doing that after a while.
Kind of.
They weren't
But-
allowed to do it because the single family weren't allowed in that
Well,
zone.
we changed, well, actually, it predates me.
They
changed.
do that for their J9s. They do that for their
Yeah.
instructors from Argentina
Yeah.
and Brazil. That's,
Right,
That's
right,
like a long thing, then they expect you to work
right.
90 hours. a
Yeah,
week.
and so that's what I'm
You know
saying, like, I think it needs to be done in a much more, you know, elegant manner where it's like building actual community and not like a hotel for your employees. Like, there's a hotel in Mount Pocono Borough, that is essentially like, I think it's essentially the Kalahari Hotel or Great Wolf, one of the ones that hasn't yet, constructed more housing for their employees. So like, this dilapidated hotel is surviving because they don't want to pay people enough here. But I think that when you shift that model, or at least require the shift in that model, you're gonna see a change. But I think about, you know, none of the people that I went to school with were able to keep living here. Most of them went away, and then it's like, doesn't make sense to come back. We used to have like countywide, it was like 1,000 new homes built every year for like 10 years, and then since the credit bubble, it's been like 100.
I understand that there's a lack of doors, right? And there's a lack of doors for people that are living in them full time.
Sure.
I think taxes is also a huge thing that needs to also be considered. You know, when my husband and I were looking for our first home, I can tell you, you know, looking at homes in this area, your mortgage payment here is so much higher because of school district taxes.
Yes,
correct.
We have huge taxes, which are also contributing to the fact that we're pricing people out of housing.
Yeah.
Which is why a lot of people rent, because then you're not paying taxes.
Right.
You are.
And- Well,
just indirectly.
indirectly, yes, your landlord,
You
whoever
are.
the rent from is paying.
100%, yeah. I mean, I have 2 rentals and the property tax is built into the rent price.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but, I mean, you know, I don't have kids, I'm paying, you know, for school taxes.
Yeah.
You know, but I do think it's really important to realize that our taxes are also contributing to the cost of housing. Because you can, you know, get somewhere in Pleasant Valley School District that's 5 acres and you can pay $4,000, and you can have a quarter acre here and pay 7.
Sure.
Well, hopefully some of that will change, because as you heard last time, I mean, there has been a disproportionately less amount of state education funding going to this area, and that has changed and will change moving forward. Whether we'll see a improvement or not remains to be seen. That's based on your school board.
Yeah.
But this is also the other flip side. You can add lots and lots of residential, and it's not gonna change your taxes.
Right.
You add one industrial building and your taxes come down.
Right.
You add a commercial building and your taxes come down, because those buildings add tax revenue.
The ratables are so much better.
They add tax revenue, but they don't add kids. So on average, every new residential adds kids by about the same amount. unless it's required to be senior and there's certain issues with that, difficulty with that, but yes, correct. So I'm just saying, there are, it can be great to say, yes, we're gonna add lots and lots of residential, but to your point, it doesn't address the tax issue.
Which contributes to your mortgage payment, which can price people out of actually being
Yeah.
able, Jacob, like you said, to come here and purchase a home.
Correct, so you could actually, instead of adding more instead of adding more front doors, you could add a bunch of, I'm just saying this, don't, gonna call me, Michael wants to do this. You could add a bunch of industrial and your taxes go way, way, way down, like significantly down, depending on what industrial you're putting in, and then all of a sudden people can afford their houses again, and you can build more houses. It's the other way you can go.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think you're right, but I think here's the problem. I think people are gonna give up on us before we get to that point. It would be way easier for me to just go move to New Jersey, but I care about the area, so I'm not.
Well, your property tax is gonna be.
Property taxes, yeah, it's funny when
High,
they
high.
come here and they talk about how cheap they are here, that's hilarious, I love that conversation,
Alright.
but I guess what I'm saying is. In these rural areas like in Warren County, New Jersey, and Sussex County, New Jersey, they're building multifamily up both for, apartments for seniors and for, anyone else. And it's because their planning, from the state was so much better, like, we're trying to expand the sewer so people don't have failing septic systems. And DEP's like, you can't cross the road. That's, it's like, well, that would save a lot of people a lot of headache. Get everyone closer and on the collective system that's maintained better, And Act 537, you can't be proactive. You essentially have to be stuck with whatever, so.
All right, motion to move on.
That's
Yeah.
really.
You don't have to be here.
What
Just saying.
if they love it? They just wanna know what the next topic is.
I don't think, did we get everything for this?
Almost, just one last thing, this is gonna be an evolving discussion, but it's a lot of things, it's not just more housing, it's also. Less parking spaces, because we don't need all that impervious coverage, it's more sidewalks, so people can be connected, they don't get killed when they walk down the street. Those types of things all factor in to this discussion, it's kind of an all of the above. Topic that needs solutions from every corner. So. It won't always be housing directly, but it's going to be, quality of life things that eventually lessen that burden. So. From there, we're gonna move on to scope of work for the vision loss trail. Julia, I don't know who wants to talk about that.
I can if you want me to.
Go ahead.
Okay. I believe Julia put a small map in your handout or in your book, I should say. I thought, yes.
Yep.
That depicts 5 phases. We were asked to break it out into phases that perhaps the Public Works Department could do this project. I've got one bigger plan here that I can lay out for the board.
Sweet.
Easier for you to see it.
Yes.
Oh, could I string?
Oh, goodness me.
So stage 1, that has to be done, we did this out and trying to develop this in stages. Stage 1 would be to clear the entire trail. Once you bring equipment in to cut trees and clear and grub, you don't want to do that a section at a time, it's not cost effective. So the entire trail would be cleared and grubbed.
Can we clarify where this is?
Yeah, we're.
This is
existing right here.
Yeah, it's the existing walking trail that's behind the second
It's your
pavilion
statues.
on the upper
I know where
level.
it's at. We used to do it at Boy Scouts,
Yeah,
Just to clarify, there were only like, what, 3 or 4 small trees about this big, that it's not, we're not clearing a lot of trees. It's like
No.
4 trees about this size, because thankfully the existing path is. I just wanna make it clear that we're not gonna be cutting a lot of trees now, it's just removing some middle-sized saplings so that, we can do this.
Right, and we also have flexibility, I mean, we know where the trail's gonna go, but we have the flexibility to move around large trees.
And the trails are short this.
Yes, it's
Right.
not.
Yeah.
Cast
Please don't
stone.
make it flat.
Well,
it is what it is. We don't wanna do a lot of earth moving either.
Right.
It's gonna be what it is. So stage one is putting in the ENS control and doing all the clearing and grubbing. Stage two would be, starting on the right-hand side of the drawing and going to about the center of the project.
So this is from the existing pavilion down the walkway.
Right. And then we would be.
Where's the building? Where's that house?
That's all the way down
That's all the
here.
way down there.
This is the upper field.
Oh, I thought it started at the house.
No.
Okay.
This is the,
Oh,
this is
the
the,
upper
yes,
field?
yes. This is,
Okay,
yeah.
there you go.
So most of it's existing, but I'll let,
What's the second soccer field?
Okay.
Oh,
yeah. The baseball diamond is all the way.
I don't know why I thought it started down here and made its way all the way up to here. Okay.
Okay, so then we would go approximately, let's see, we have it here about 950 linear feet. Put in the play pods, excavate the area for the interactive sculptures. And put everything in for the first half of the trail. That would include a wearing course, so at that point in time, the trail would be able to be opened and used by everyone. Phase three, we would continue on down to the end of the formal trail, which is shown in gray, and that's simply just, doing the final grading and putting in stone and paving at that point. Phase four would be going all the way down to the west and putting in an emergency access so that it could be accessed from the westerly side into the trail.
Right.
Except by
That's
the
roughly
baseball
behind
diamond.
the baseball dugout.
Yes,
And that's by the shed there. That's where they sell snacks
right.
for the baseball. Yep.
And then stage five, we go back all the way to the beginning and we upgrade the parking lot. And put in some sidewalk there and clean everything up.
You like your sidewalks.
We do.
The whole thing's a sidewalk.
Is it?
What's a path?
It's a path, it's a paved path. It's ADA accessible, I mean, it's vision loss, it's for
We got the grant
handicapped
for.
people. But,
Yes.
there's gonna be, kiosks there, signs, I believe, with, braille on it, so that you can
Right.
tell what's there.
We're gonna use braille anymore.
Well,
Well, there's also gonna be some.
there's gonna be audio as well.
Yeah. An educational thing.
Was it not recording for?
We temporarily just lost audio and video. It looks like,
Internet.
Zoom just had an issue or our internet.
Internet, okay. But so either way, we got a $90,000 grant for those statues. So those statues are entirely paid for by a state grant.
I know, but you say a grant, but it actually comes back to,
From people that gamble. It's a tax from Mount Airy, essentially.
yeah.
But how many
that's
man
to help
hours,
our taxes.
how many man hours by the township are involved in administrating those grants, applying for those grants and building needs, you know, we've got John
Way
working on
less than the
5
value, way
stages
less
of
than
what
the
is that
value of the
process?
grant.
Well, that's paid for.
Can we, I don't know, just put our time and effort into, I don't know, like paving more roads or.
Or would you rather? put your
Hold
time
on,
and
hold on,
effort
hold
in?
on, hold on. We have increased by a massive amount, the amount that we're spending on paving.
Mhm.
And we brought it in-house, so we're not paying those massive upcharges that you get from those big paving companies.
Mhm.
You know, the only way that those are cost effective anymore is if we jumped like a lot more and then did like a bunch of roads all at once. So by working with Middle Smithfield, we're able to pave more roads internally. It's more
That's
cost
just
effective.
one small example. We have bigger fish to fry in this town.
We have a philosophical disagreement. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would actually argue, so one of the things that, I think is great, I mean, I'm the newest here, I wasn't involved in these things, but I'm genuinely surprised by what I see as a bit of a pushback on parks, by certain members of this room. Because the alternative is you have a township that doesn't go after any money and still pays those taxes, still paying your state taxes.
right.
Those monies go somewhere else. One of the best, hold on, I'm sorry. One of the best things about a team that can put together a grant writer is what you're doing is you're bringing more money into your community. Now, you might disagree with how that gets spent. One of the challenges is this probably grant would not have been received. I don't know. I wasn't there when it happened. But one of the reasons that they were successful is because it had this vision loss element. So you have something where everyone gets to enjoy a path where they can bike. I take my kids over to New Jersey to go to parks, to bike on paths, which I do every year, because we don't really have any of those here. I don't have anywhere safe where my kids can bike on a bicycle.
McDade.
That's one of the trails that they go. Yeah, and we do it. But actually, like my autistic son hates the gravel. I know, now mind you, this is gonna be gravel, but it's gonna be hard packed gravel and that's up hills. Anyway, the point is, there are gonna be people that are gonna value this and enjoy this. And my understanding is, the vast majority of it has come from leveraging small amount of tax dollars to bring in a lot more tax dollars. I, for one, I mean, good job, guys, on this one, even though I wasn't here. So I just wanted to voice my counter opinion. I will say one thing though, I will say one other thing, which is, I do want to make sure, and I'm gonna go to the River's Edge meeting as well.
Yep.
We have to make sure that we have the ability to maintain them at the same time, which is why I think when we look at these things, when we look at plans, we want to do things that have limited maintenance
Right.
costs, which from what I've seen so far here, this is one of those things. Doesn't look like it's a
Which
lot.
should also be built into the ongoing budget for that project as
Yeah,
well.
but some of the grants can't do.
Well, you have to
grants
put
do-
mineral oil on these.
Grants do
You
not
have to treat
fund,
those things that you got.
Grants
You know what I'm saying?
grants do
I
not
know you're
fund.
mad at me, Michael, I'm sorry.
I'm not mad at you.
Oh, I saw that as I saw.
No, I'm just saying I want to talk. I was in the middle of speaking.
But I'm saying, you have this, but then there has to be maintenance, like, you know what I mean? And then we have to have people watch different parks and pay for that and.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, I'm just
That's
saying.
part of what a municipality does.
Municipality runs parks. It's
And
one
the
of
other
the
thing-
things that we're not required to do.
Our parks are there for everybody, whether you're disabled or whether you're not, and they should have things in them for everybody. The biggest word in parks today is inclusive, which means that any park that's built anywhere should have facilities for disabled and facilities where anybody can use it even if they're disabled or not. And this is part of the idea of what a municipality is about. We take care of everybody, we have something for everybody.
I don't think that's the point of contention that they're disputing here. I don't think the ADA, the accessibility or the inclusivity of those.
Disagree with you. I think it
an
is.
issue.
I guess what we would ask is, what do you think is not being done because we're doing this? Because I would venture to say, everywhere else that we've done, we've done really fantastic work. I mean, it's not inexpensive and it does take time. But when I got here, nothing was getting done. I mean it, nothing. We got like a development like here or there, they were lucky to get Dollar General. And I mean it, because the way that it took to get anything approved here, this township pursued open space at all costs, which is not a bad thing because we have a lot of really good open space now. But now we also have all these other issues where, because they didn't fund things equitably, they spent 20 years doing that instead of replacing any of our trucks. So we had to do all that, and we had to play catch up for 15 years of that.
This is a discussion on the park.
No,
Yeah,
it
but
isn't,
still,
it isn't
right.
a discussion of,
That house,
Hold on.
the scout house, I'm behind that.
it's still there right now.
But you're taking it down, or no? I thought it was too bad you had to take it down or something.
No, there's, the house at Marshall's Falls is a different story. That.
But this one over here,
This-
you're repairing?
We're not repairing it at the moment. We have to do a study at some point of what we can do. Right now, the scouts are able to use it for their limited capacity because it can only handle 11 people, I think, inside right now. So we're working on, what does the future of that look like? But that's something that is gonna take a capital campaign, grant funding. We're not looking to level it and then do nothing. We think it'd be a disservice to the people that use it now and the people that hope to use it.
Well, you asked me how I feel, why didn't you put it into the house instead of
She wouldn't
another
have got that
trail or
grant.
something?
Now, but what I'm saying is,
So I spent a decade writing grants, and you
Okay.
have to cater to what is available out there.
Mhm.
And it's not just like, I want $100,000, I can do whatever I want with it. That's
Correct.
how grants
I
work.
understand.
There are grants for other types of facilities, infrastructure, community centers, or.
That's what I thought could be used
Instead
for,
of-
or if you did like.
This particular
walking
grant
path.
could not
Right.
be used.
right,
Right, but I'm saying instead of.
This is one that we got.
Instead of exploring and going after these types of grants, and we maybe explore.
I'm
going
fairly
after-
we are
certain
exploring
we
all
are
the time.
doing that, yeah.
They're 100% being explored, but they are very, very different than what people think. There's not like some cool grant where they help us pave a road. We gotta do that on our own. The
Mhm.
gas tax pays for that, and then we have to supplement that, which we do handsomely.
Unfortunately, repairs are like the least sexy thing for grants.
Right.
Nobody likes that.
So,
LSA will pave your road.
Ellen,
This is an LSA.
hold on.
I know, but you said you have to fund your road paving on your own.
It is,
What
it is.
What got an LSA grant for paving Cherry Valley Road? I'm just telling you.
Right, no, I agree. So what I was gonna say is, it generally isn't just for like your regular paper. Like Cherry Valley has like very different challenges on stormwater, topographical challenges, all that stuff. So
Also state by county.
So it has to have competitive factors that go into it. What I'm saying is, where we're not gonna get an LSA grant for Franklin Hill Road, but we are going to get one for hopefully the fire truck for Shawnee and hopefully for the stretchers for Bushkill Emergency Corps. And that helps us and them leverage the tax dollars that we contribute to them. So there is no, binary choice on what we're pursuing grants for. It's just a matter of what do we get them for, who needs the most help at the time. And the maximum, the max, award on most of these is, $1 million or so, but no one ever gets that. So it's like multiple grant rounds. For 15 years before me, this place prioritized Marshall's Falls. They got the master site plan. They did all of that, which eventually now we're getting the money for. My intention for anything else is not to take 20 years to get it done, but hopefully in another year, we can apply for a grant to build a community center at the park, because we want that to be utilized. But it's going to take, a significant amount of funding. It's gonna take a couple of studies. So we are making those investments in our budget, but at the same time, we care a lot about the roads. That's why we're making sure we're buying new trucks or replacing old trucks, because I got a bunch of trucks that are from the late 90s and early 2000s, which aren't good anymore. And you know how long it takes to get a new truck? Usually 3 to 4 years. Leaf trucks just showed up that we got a grant for, years ago, and we bought in 2020.
Or second leaf truck.
And it's needed. We got 54 miles of roads that we gotta, take care of, and 8,000 people that live on a bunch of roads that are a quarter mile or less. So I guess what I'm saying is we're pursuing everything that we absolutely can. It's not
What's
in
the
and
match
or.
here? What's the match on this grant? Because they don't just give you money without you ponying up the dime.
Not always
So-
true. On LSA, there is no match required. On DCNR grants, like the C2, P2 grant, that is typically the one-to-one match.
But that can also, that match doesn't have to be, tax dollars.
Oftentimes it is in kind, it's labor.
You know, or you can get another, potentially get grant to do it. I mean, I don't know about this case.
Correct. You can use another grant for a cash match. That is fairly common, which we've done. I mean, Julia's helped preserve or help us get at least, I think it's over over $2 million? Grants?
We're somewhere between 2.5 and 3 at this point.
Yeah.
Or-
And her salary is only, a very small, portion of that, especially over the course of those years. Absolutely.
To answer your question, it's about 12,500. That's couple hundred one way or another. I don't remember the exact number.
Oh, the match.
12,000.
This one?
Yes, but we leveraged that, the full project, amount that we applied for, I believe is about 167-ish. And the money awarded by the state's approximately 142, roughly.
So the difference is township money, is that what you're saying?
Or the next grant. So LSA is, there's a statewide, then there's a local one, and they're both open for once a year. So there's there's a number of facilities grants and different things like that for particularly the inclusive stuff. And that's what the state priority is right now with the money. Now, they applied before my time to create the wellness park at Waterfront Park, which included that dock and these other play pods and all these things. So over time that manifests, and I think you saw a pause because of the effect COVID had for like 2 years. I mean, some grants like Green Light Go, for example, when the pandemic hit, PennDOT was like, yeah, we'll get back to you on that. But now it's finally about to be done.
We hope.
We just need what, the modem?
Yeah,
Yeah, but the software's there.
I thought they got the motor.
they did get them, but they have to be installed.
Right. Well, I saw signal service out there at 447 and at Mosier Farm Drive today. I don't know what they were doing. I'm just saying,
It's in the works.
they're calibrating, like we're almost there.
I mean, the cutoff date is the end of January. It's gotta be done by then.
Can I just, I have a sick family member. What do we have to do with this?
This point,
We have to approve something today?
I believe Alex just wanted us on to make you guys aware of what was going on.
so we don't have a vote yet. Okay, well, that's a good update then. And now I'm gonna go to public comment because we don't have a vote on it yet. Go ahead, Mark.
So, and one of my buddy Joanne also, who's not here, I'll ask, has there been any recent contact or activity with the Shawnee Valley Purity? Ron just stepped out, so I'll have to wait for him to come back too. I know you posted the annual update. Will that be on an upcoming board meeting that gets approved at a board meeting?
Yes, given the fact that, I assumed this one was going to run a little long on the 7th.
Okay, next one.
Yeah.
And then any other recent, I'd like to ask Ron when he gets back.
I saw the annual updates, the only thing I saw. Then came like,
Was it in? I have to look.
I think when did I sent it to the board the same day I put it on, was it like the 9th?
Days back, I mean, it's on the website.
Yeah.
I'll take a look before we vote.
It's just the annual update, but I didn't know if there was any other contact activity. And if you could ask.
To my knowledge, no, because normally if there's actually something that's gonna happen, you'll see a lot of.
December 5th. I sent it out.
That's when they come in.
No, December
It
5th
is
is
December 10th.
when I sent the annual update out to you guys and uploaded it to the website.
Okay, Ron's done. So I'm asking about any recent contact activity with Shawnee Valley Purity.
Last time was, hearing from Mr. Hunter with respect to the finalization of the land development agreement that's still not finalized. That's where it stands.
But it hasn't been touched since like, while, right?
Well, I mean, I did revisions to the agreement,
Yeah.
but we also need some revised quantity and cost estimates, et cetera,
Right.
to be able to.
I guess what I'm saying, it's been a long time since he's had a substantive interaction.
Not sure what you say by long, but I'd say probably we had significant interaction sometime over the summer.
That's what I mean, that's.
To me, that's yesterday, but to someone else, I guess.
Fair enough. All right, hold on, before you go, Pat, Marguerite had her hand up.
Let Pat go now.
I think the housing issue is very important.
Can you stand up?
I
can't see you over the.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, thanks.
I think the housing issue is very important, and I would suggest that it's the kind of project that you should have a group begin to look at it and to write out the various possibilities of where they ought to be. I know there are a lot of talented people in this.
One of the things that I
say, the reality is it's an issue that's also bigger than the township. And my view is the township, especially our township that's already not allowing Airbnbs, there needs to be buy-in from, hold on, from more than just this group. And I don't think this township alone is gonna solve this problem. We can make inroads, but this might be a place for the COG. And the Visitors Bureau in United Way are trying to have some follow-up groups to attack these things. And I think, to your point, we also think it's important, and we'll make sure that there's representation.
I heard 3 different potential ways of attacking this issue. And as a person who's worked on things like that before, there are things that you can do to further scope out those particular opportunities. And I think that a township should have a little bit better planning and looking at those options with what the what the opportunities are. There are a lot of people who would be more than willing to come to help look through those issues, because when I heard you talk about them, those issues have been dealt with in various other places. And there are various organizations and government agencies and so forth that can be marshaled to help flesh it out, is what I'm saying. So I think there should be a working group. I'm suggesting a working group on housing, citizen based.
Well, one thing I thought about too is there are some developers that actually live in the township, and I thought it might be interesting to see what they thought too. I agree.
Well, I just, want to hand these to Julia. Oh, tonight, there's 47 rights to come.
Right to know requests.
Correct.
You'll be hearing from me sometime next week.
Oh, you weren't gonna say anything?
Just,
No, that's all I can say.
no, that's fine. Just so you are aware, according to the right to know law, you submitted these after business hours, so they will be considered tomorrow as received. So just for your time frame.
That's fine.
Okay. Anyone else?
I just have a quick question. Do you keep track of like how many people are on Zoom or something for every meeting?
Yeah,
Like the names, you have them written down, right?
they, Zoom, more or less keeps the attendee list on their end. So like we can
I just
access it.
wondered about that.
Well, yeah, like the times.
There's no legal requirement to have this.
The time that we had been like
Right.
Zoom bombed and stuff, we tried to figure out who it was, but like generally, yeah, we can get, the name, the email of the user.
Okay, so like if a past Zoom meeting was done, you would know how many people were on that Zoom meeting, that's
Yeah.
correct? Okay, just wanted to know that.
Okay, I have Brett and then I have Rob.
I went, after you drive and go out, I went and visited PennDOT up on 611. And they pointed me to a gentleman, Gary DeHaven at the PennDOT traffic department.
Okay.
And, I explained the situation, including our township has that as a safety priority issue.
Right.
And he explained to me what needs to be done. He would like to talk to you about that.
Great.
I have his number. Basically, the way I understand it is PennDOT will pay for a traffic study. But the township has to pay for the light. So I was curious what we paid for the light at the top of, Shawnee Road.
A light in Gaffney Drive?
So to answer your question, I did get your voicemail. I'm sorry I haven't had time to respond yet. Unfortunately, what we paid for traffic lights isn't relevant anymore. With COVID, everything has skyrocketed. For a traffic light, we're looking somewhere between $200,000 and $500,000.
Right, I understand it's very, there is money available.
Yes.
Explain.
Well, it generally includes the alignments and stuff like that. So this is something that you would get like a multimodal grant for.
You're talking about it.
You won't be able to get a light at Gaffney Drive. It's too
You
close.
said that, I'm sorry, that's just not the case. I beg to differ. You tell me I can't get a light, but I'm talking to PennDOT and they say you can get a light.
Well, they say you need to do a traffic study, and the traffic study is gonna tell you, you
Yeah.
can't have a light there, because it's 20 feet from the other light. I mean, it's not 20 feet, but it's super close.
I understand, but I don't, all respect, I don't think you know. There's one up in Marshall's Creek.
Yeah.
Same deal. And there are other instances where that happens, and this is part of the deal. You guys are just pushing back.
I don't want a light there.
I know you don't want a light,
So then-
however, you don't live on that road. And you don't come into contact with all the traffic.
I agree that is, I don't wanna get into a fight with Brett, but I agree that I literally wrote to Julie, like, please add Gaffney Drive as one of the most dangerous corners of our area. I don't think a light is the solution.
Okay, but they'll do a traffic study and PennDOT will decide what the solution.
But this is state road,
I
PennDOT has to
understand-
do a traffic
I understand
study.
that you want a private developer to help pay for half of a solution. And you're waiting for that, that guy's not gonna come back, or he hasn't come back. But the PennDOT, they have a procedure, they have resources available, and you just need to avail ourselves of the specific guy, Gary DeHaven. He'll explain to you, I understand that lights are very expensive, there is money available, and I'm gonna be back here. I understand that you and I have a disagreement about this, that's fine. But at the same time, I want a fair assessment. Not an opinion, an uneducated opinion from one of you guys about there shouldn't be a light there. I want everybody to consider and give it a fair.
Am I wrong, or is this a PennDOT issue because it's a
No,
state
it's
road?
not. It is not. It's the township will pay, the township has to pay for the light. PennDOT will, but they won't do it unless you request it, okay? So you talk to Gary DeHaven, he'll tell you what needs to be done. And there's a step through about how to do this. They will do a traffic study if you request it. And they will advise what PennDOT will do. It's not solely a PennDOT issue, it's partly township.
I'd be interested, if you want to get that information, Julia, then we
Yeah.
can certainly,
Sorry to disagree, but.
But here's,
If they'll pay for the study, I don't care. Let them tell me what
Once
it's
they
affecting.
pay for the study and they say you need a light, you must put the light in, you can't walk away.
Well, if they say we
Understand that.
need a light and a light will work there, I mean, so be it.
So are there grants for lights?
There
There probably are.
yes.
Yeah, or go green was, well, that's not new, that's software.
here's the alternative. The alternative, which we can do, all right, we have to apply for a multimodal grant to do it, is to take the road to Buttermilk. So the road just curves through behind where that pizza place is now, comes out at Buttermilk. It was always planned that way. And a new development has been that we can get that land for nothing, right? All we have to do then is apply for a multimodal grant to put in the actual road and put it up to where the intersection is now. And cut off the road that's there, that's the problem that goes out towards the other side of the beer
I understand, but
place.
PennDOT would do an analysis, they would do a study and determine what the proper solution is. And I'm not sure if you have to do it after they.
Well, PennDOT has already determined that it should go through the area I'm talking about because they already put in the lights there. There were don't walk signs. I don't know if they're still there.
Right. But I'm not sure, Ron, so once they do a study, you have to do what they.
That's my understanding, I could be wrong.
Okay, that's possible.
But Upper Mount Bethel did that exact thing and now they're stuck with an $800,000.
And I know that's what happened with Stroud Township and, what was it, Brushy Mountain? So yeah, we're happy to look into it. I mean,
Yeah.
certainly give us the information and.
Yeah, this gentleman will.
I'm sure the Haven will say whether or not the
Yeah.
township has to do it. So hopefully you will know that for sure from him.
Right, right. That's all I ask.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Rob,
Hey, thanks. How are you?
good to see you. It's been a bit.
Good to see you. A couple of quick questions, from the macro to the micro, having to do with the neighbor next door that I've been bothering you guys about for a couple of years. Since Ken won't officially communicate with me because it's an ongoing investigation, and I believe Robert respectfully, I think he told you he can't communicate with you as well because it's an ongoing investigation. Who am I to seek information from about the status? About what's going on with this investigation about the use and the abuse of the property next door that has been going on for years.
Personally, I wish I knew.
Because Ken won't talk to me and he said he won't talk to you. So where do I go next?
Why are
Good
you-
question.
Wait, hold on.
Do I need a zoning hearing?
No.
So
Hold on.
the,
All of that is whatever. He cannot talk to you. I don't know why he said he cannot talk to Robert.
the reason that he is, gosh, you're both named, okay, the reason he cannot talk to that Rob, forgive me here, is because if Ken tells you, hey, we're doing X, Y, and Z, I just did this, blah, 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 blah. We compromise you as a witness, which gets the entire case tossed. And I also do not understand potentially, I can talk to Ken and find out why he's not updating this Robert. But in general, for all of our complaints, we have a policy across everything that goes there have been some inspections where I say, yes, we've filed things, we've done this. We can say that to a point, but we need to be very careful because if taking this out of this situation, if I say, yeah, this person, they definitely have a broken down car, I cited them, I'm working with them, they're trying to get it cut up with the Sawzall, it's taking them blah, 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 blah. And we eventually get to court and the defendant in that case finds out that you have been part of the investigation process and working with Ken, tosses it.
Right.
So it's an attempt to protect the
Integrity.
the integrity of everything as we go from enforcement to.
Just to be clear though, we do notify people now at the conclusion of these investigations. That was a policy change that I thought was already in place, but we made that change a couple months back.
Yes, you should have received a smattering of letters sent from us saying, hey, this is open, we can't notify you or.
I don't think I did, but.
That's the answer.
I'll check my
It's an
inbox.
ongoing
We're
investigation.
apparently only partway through that,
That's-
apologies,
Okay.
Diana is working on it.
I
I am
was
just curious
doing
because-
investigation. I can't talk about it.
Things continue unabated next door, and I'm just sharing because now, Robert, if you came there, that they've got a gull wing roof and balconies on that building now. So I'm just letting you know, it's really gotten to be a crazy thing. I'm just sitting there watching it day in, day out for the past several years.
What has this been, 3 years that it's been investigated?
Say again, please?
Has it now been 3 years that it's been investigated?
April of 2022, when I started ringing the firebox. And the building's been built. That was before, 40 trees were cut, and now I'm
Right.
staring at a piece of shit, pardon my French. Second question, Mr. Levenheim, for you. We had a conversation about that, structure that lit up the wellness center that I stare at. I'm not right in the wake of.
This is the two-story garage?
Say again?
This is the two-story garage?
No, I'm going from the two-story garage to the Gap Wellness Center that is
Oh,
lit up
oh,
like a
right,
Roman
right.
candle.
Right.
I sent a picture to you, sir, and that's what it looks like every night from my deck.
Wait till the new one's built.
Right, now that's a question I have, that's where I'm segueing to.
Yep.
You shared with me that, it's rather disconcerting, and I mentioned that to Representative Crump's office, and she came back to me to say, hey, don't worry about it, it's only gonna be a small, like a renovation of a gymnasium, which, no, I'm not calling anybody wrong, but I'm saying that's in contrast to what I was led to believe. And so I wanna know clearly, what might be going on there?
We haven't had any hearing on this yet.
Okay.
Okay, but my feeling, and I've expressed this to you and other people, is that it's in the wrong place. It's on top of it's sited on top of a hill, it's gonna be available.
You're not talking about the proposed center, you're talking about the renovation of the accessory building.
I'm talking about.
He's talking about a building that exists and you're talking about one
That's
that
what,
doesn't yet
that's what
exist.
Representative Crump's office was addressing.
Right.
She reached out to them and apparently they told her that, but they must have obfuscated the fact that there's a new building that's being built.
You should definitely go on our website, under resources, under open developer projects. You can see everything the township has received.
Okay.
So you can see the water gap.
Because they were
land
last
development
at the
plan
planning commission.
And the Healthy Minds sketch plan that they have are presenting to the planning commission on Thursday.
All right, forgive me for playing catch up, but it's only for one of our conversation, Robert.
This is the new building that's gonna be a gym or something like
The
that,
recreation stuff.
recreation.
Is that gonna be on the other side of Tonscap Road?
It's gonna be right next to the Water Gap Wellness.
It's off of,
It's gonna be up on
So
the
it's
Mountain
gonna be
Road side. It's
another
gonna be
building
just
lit up.
another building.
Another building to look at and.
Yep.
isn't it, it's above Wolf Gap, or, yeah.
This is, an associated, yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Let's set up a time to catch up. And we'll kind of walk you through some of the things. Since, yeah, I'll shoot you an email.
Thank you.
We'll set up, yeah.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Shoot, I have two, I forgot what the first one was. But I would just like to say to those that are here, in the future, May 20th, 2025 is primary day. If anyone needs a voter registration letter or application or a mail-in ballot application, I have them here and I'll be carrying them. If you need one or anybody you know needs one, I'm your girl. And I don't remember what the other 10 was, but I'll remember it next week.
That's great.
Thanks.
Thank you, motion to adjourn. Adjourn. Motion, that's 11:09, second, in favor. Aye.